Good evening and welcome to the 6th edition of the Alabama Crimson Tide live call-in show from yours truly, Jackson Johnson, and I got my partner in crime, Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports, as we take your calls on the Alabama Crimson Tide, whether they are good, bad, or ugly. We want to hear your takes. You are the star of the show. We have the call-in link right here in the chat. And let me tell you something, folks. We want to hear your takes. How you doing tonight, good buddy?
Doing pretty good, Jackson. Like you said, definitely excited to talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide, no matter what, no matter if it's good, bad, or ugly. But this past week, it was really good, absolutely, and definitely has reset expectations yet again for the Alabama Crimson Tide this season. I mean, it's been a roller coaster. I mean, the Georgia win, people were thinking national championship. Then the Vandy loss, the Tennessee loss, the close win against South Carolina. Everybody's like, oh, no, they're not even going to make the playoffs. They're falling apart. The dynasty's over. Now they blow out LSU, and everything's back on the table for Alabama to make the playoffs, even have a shot at the SEC title game. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I still think it would be better for Alabama if they didn't make the title game so they don't have that opportunity to lose and then have 3 losses, as I mentioned before. But still, like, roller coaster season for Alabama, tons to talk about. And it's exciting right now coming off a big win. So like you said, Jackson, definitely want to hear your guys' takes on Alabama football this season, and calling links in the chat like Jackson says. So we're ready to hear what you guys have to say, whether you're a Bama fan or not. Doesn't matter. If you're a Mercer fan, definitely call in as well and see if you think you guys got a shot.
Yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see if Mercer has shot, but I doubt that. But then again, never overlook any opponent.
You never know. You never know. We could debate whether Mercer's better than Merrimack.
Oh, man.
I think around here, Merrimack's still number 1, though. So,
well, I mean, maybe Mercer and Merrimack can be the game of the century presented by CFB After Dark.
That would be so hilarious. Or the Citadel. I think Mercer and Merrimack sounds better, though, but the Citadel's another hot one.
Oh, man. But, do you have any, like how there's summer reading, like how you get like a summer reading list in school and all that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything on your winter reading list?
Well, I know what you're trying to segue, Jackson. Definitely. I got Mark Rogers, Disputed National Champions College Football's Historical 1990s Reset as a definite Christmas wish list. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. You're not going to want to miss Mark's book because he is a guru when it comes to college football history and specifically the 1990s. And there are already tons of people reading Mark Rogers' book, including Jackson and potentially me in the future. Can't wait to check it out because I know it's good.
And you're going to learn about what happened in the 90s, how the decade changed the sport, why the championship results should be questioned, how to correctly think through the scenarios, to appreciate the accomplishments of teams that were not recognized as champions. This book provides an in-depth analysis of the changes, controversies, outcomes that defined a decade of college football. Grab your copy now.
Absolutely. And love those 5-star reviews as well. Definitely. You know it's a good book when you got 5-star reviews. Absolutely.
Agreed. And I can tell you right now, there's definitely an Ets account that you definitely want to check out. The Voice of College Football Ets account, where you can get top-notch discussion, debate, and analysis with no off-season. Oh, well, we're breaking a 4th wall inside a 16th wall. Inside, oh my God, we're under a 64th wall. We're under and 256th
the N64.
Oh, that's right. We got a new edition of Oklahoma Live with Tarani and Chad Smith as the new host of Oklahoma Live on Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Oh,
There
there's
we are
ours.
again.
Here we go. And we
The
got the Michigan.
520th wall.
Oh, there we go. So you got these guys, TJ Ronan and friends, on the Michigan Call-In Show every Thursday night. Man, it's a wild lineup. I mean, it's like a gourmet of college football. I could tell you right now, it's amazing.
Absolutely. You don't want to miss any of the shows at the Voice of College Football, and more are coming on the way as well. And the X account is where you can find every single one of the shows that are coming up every single week, even in the off season. So got a lot of great stuff coming down the pike.
Oh,
Austin said, Jeffrey, your outfit is clashing, laughing a lot with Ole Miss blue. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily map out, sometimes when I'm doing shows, to have the right color scheme. I probably should, but the hat is what matters.
there you go. I mean, that's what you go with, man. And tune in to Alabama with the Voice of College Football, where you can become a YouTube member. For $2.99 a month, you can become a Crimson Faithful member, and those benefits include loyalty badges next to your name and custom emoji to use in comments and live chat. And you get a member shout out. And for $4.99 a month, you can get an access to monthly hangout with us and Johnny Burtz by becoming a Saban disciple. And for $9.99 a month, you can give out content requests and connect with us on social media. So what that means is you can give out any form of content request, more recruiting updates, interviews you want to see, like with former players, current players. Like we will do our darndest to fulfill that request, because your investment for $9.99 a month by becoming a Bear Bryant legend is important to us. And by golly, we are going to fulfill those requests.
I still think it's funny that Bear Bryant's a tier above Nick Saban on the membership list. Still cracks me out. Like, Nick Saban kind of surpassed Bear Bryant. I'm not going to lie. But, hey, you wouldn't have had Nick Saban without Bear Bryant, though. He built the foundation. So it's totally fair. It just cracks me up, though. But absolutely, you're not going to want to miss being either a Crimson Faithful, Saban disciple, or Bear Bryant legend, because we got a lot of great content coming down the pike. Like Jackson said on the content request, we'll do everything we can to make it happen. Maybe it will be impossible in some aspects, but the only true failure is if you don't try. So we'll do everything we possibly can to make that happen. And definitely your support would definitely help a lot. Appreciate it. Especially ones that are already members as well. We definitely appreciate it.
Well, as the saying goes, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
That is one of the best phrases of all time. It's great. Absolutely.
Best of the best. But while we wait on our callers, apparently we've been getting some recruiting misses.
I've seen that.
Yeah, we have not been coming out hot. We have been coming in cold somehow. What is going on with us? Like, our guy Dawson Merritt has flipped to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. What is going on?
That's a downgrade. No, I mean, that's not, no offense to Nebraska at all, but I mean, that's a downgrade. I mean, maybe he's looking at it that Nebraska, he'll be able to start immediately. I mean, that's what I'm looking at in some of these cases, because it's kind of like that guy that went to Ole Miss. I mean, he's probably looking at it that he'll be able to start immediately, whereas at Bama, you've got Ryan Williams, as the star, Cunningham that went to Ole Miss. I mean, so I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, though. Coming off a big win over LSU, you would think, like, the momentum would be there. And then Alabama has these misses. I mean, like I said, no offense to Nebraska. I mean, they're a really good program, especially historically. But it's just crazy for Alabama to lose a guy to Nebraska. That's wild. But, yeah, there it is. Caleb Cunningham, wide receiver, goes to Ole Miss. I mean, that, to me, he wants to be a wide receiver number one. And Ryan Williams is kind of going to be the guy that steals the show. Maybe that's why. Plus, Ole Miss has really upped their NIL. really up their NIL, and maybe they were able to, convince him of that. I saw somewhere there was a post that said something to the nature of that he felt that his connections with the NIL or something like that were better in Ole Miss. I don't really know what that means. Maybe with the businesses there. I don't know. It's a bizarre thing. I mean, it's the wild, wild west right now when it comes to NIL and the portal and recruitments. So just because a guy commits doesn't mean anything. I don't know if you saw or not, but today haven't had any time to talk about it, but definitely if I'm not able to make a video on it, we'll definitely be talking about it next week on Hoosiers Live. But Indiana just flipped a guy from Louisville. Sorry, Austin. I don't know if you saw that or not, but Tyrone Burris, an edge rusher, a high 3-star, low 4-star recruit, depending on the service, decommitted to Louisville today, or from Louisville, and just went to IU. So, I mean, it's happening all across the country. I mean, I get it with that. Indiana's killing it. Louisville's doing good too, but Indiana's killing it. But it just kind of sucks to see Alabama losing out on these commitments here because of the fact like, these would have been really good players. But I don't think it's the end of the world. Alabama's class is still really talented, really full. Maybe it's just too loaded. Some of these guys, again, want to go where it's more of a sure thing with playing time instead of taking that competition. But I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things where it's a blip on the radar. It's kind of tough, but I don't think it's going to wreck Bama in any way.
No, but it is a shame to lose out on a good receiver all the same. It's like I always kind of like to stat the offense, but at the same time, you want to make sure you got a doggone good O-line.
Oh, yeah, O-line's key. I mean, that is like the main reason a team like Indiana is finally having success, too. They got a better offensive line. You got to have a good offensive line. Troy V asked if the season ended today, Indiana and Alabama be playing the first round of Indiana, which I still can't believe that's a sentence, by the way. Who would Jeffrey be rooting for if that happens? Again, I've had this question asked before. It's so tough because I love Alabama. But it's one of those deals where, I mean, Indiana has never had success. Wouldn't it be cool to see Indiana have one big win, you know? I mean, it's just one of those things where I love Bama, and if they win, I'll be thrilled. But I've seen Alabama win 6 national championships. I haven't seen Indiana win anything. So
you would see. I could tell you this, Troy V. You would see a humongous crossover from Alabama at the Voice College Football and Indiana at the Voice College Football.
Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe this is possible. I mean, Indiana is 5th in the country. Right? Indiana's 5th in the nation. It still feels surreal. It does. I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm more happy for Hoosier fans than myself. I mean, I like IU a lot. Don't get me wrong, I really do. But I'm just a guy that, has, for whatever reason, the last 5 or 6 years, just taken a soft spot to that program because they were the ultimate losers. And I really just started watching. I don't know why, but I did. But those fans in Indiana that have watched decades, I mean, there was a lady in tears on TV that was like, I've been a fan of Indiana for 47 years. They haven't won anything. Now they're doing this. I mean, it's amazing. And I'm just really happy for those fans. I really am. I mean, and I still cannot believe that people are debating, is Colorado a better story than Indiana? No.
I mean, Colorado might be a great story on 60 Minutes, but not to like all of college football.
I mean, of course it's on 60 Minutes because prime time is famous and Kurt Signetti is just a random guy. I mean, I get it. But at the same time, Colorado won a national championship in 1990. Okay? It's not like they've never been, good. Indiana, yeah, they went to the Rose Bowl in 1967. But outside of that, they've been trashed forever. I mean, they've only won 3 bowl games in their entire history. They have the worst record in the Power 5. They were 3-9 last year. I mean, Colorado's a great story. It's a great story. It's not better than Indiana. BYU's not better than Indiana. They had the Zach Wilson year a few years ago. It's just dumb. It's just really, really dumb. Like, it's not debatable, okay? Let Indiana have their day. Don't debate it for clicks. There's no debate. Absolutely no debate. Kurt Signetti should be coach of the year no matter what happens the rest of this season. And Indiana is the story of the year no matter what happens against Ohio State. It doesn't matter. This team has never had this type of season. I mean, they are 5th in the nation. 5th. And it doesn't matter how bad their schedule is. I don't think it matters. I don't. I think it's amazing. I mean, and even if I wasn't an Indiana fan at all, I would still think it's amazing. I think it's fantastic. But you know how it is. People are going to debate. Rough Rider giving Austin a slight there. Austin's team's doing fine. Louisville's doing fine. They're solid, very, very solid. I don't think losing one guy is going to wreck them. And yeah, it would be really, really cool. Absolutely. Oh, but yeah, I would love the crossover. It'd be so tough because I love both teams. I love Bama more, but I would be excited for IU to get a big win. So that's my answer. I would be excited for both teams because Bama's my favorite team in college football. Indiana gets more of the attention from everybody for me because of the fact I'm the only one that talks about them. So when I talk about Bama, no one's like, well, tons of people do. But I love both teams. I love Bama more. They're my favorite team. But I would be probably more excited for IU because it's never happened.
Yeah. But I mean, it would make a huge crossover either way. You know, it would be like a Christmas miracle for college football fans either way. Like especially you guys, like, you know, it's like we can take part in something happening, you know, in real time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it would just be awesome. I mean, Alabama going to Indiana would be crazy. I mean, that they were already talking about it on TV. They're like, imagine Alabama going to that small Memorial Stadium out there in Indiana. It's only 52,000 people. And I'm like, well, you know what? Kurt Cignetti's already talking about if we keep winning, we're going to expand that thing. So let's make it happen. Let's expand Memorial Stadium. Won't be Bryant Denny level, but still, you know, when you win, that's what happens.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the thing, though. It's like when people say that, oh, Kurt Cignetti's going to leave Indiana, he doesn't look like a guy that would just up and leave after one year. I mean, he looks like a guy that's just set in his ways, is wanting to build something bigger than himself. I don't think he's just going to up and leave right away because, I mean, hell, he's got all the money he needs. He's not out trying to get Elon Musk money. That's not going to happen. He's happy with what he's got. He wants to build something bigger, something that no man has ever done in Bloomington, Indiana. I think he wants to do just that.
Yeah, and the thing is it just seems very similar to the Kansas situation with Lance Leipold because, you know, yeah, they're not having a good year this year, but you can still tell Kansas is competing. I mean, they just beat Iowa State. They're literally a 2-point underdog to undefeated BYU. 2-point underdog. So people think they can maybe win that game. Would it shock me? No, it wouldn't. But the thing is that what we saw, though, when he had success at Kansas, what did they do? They gave him a big extension, and they also, you remember the renovations to the stadium, Kansas Stadium, they put that into the contract where it's like, we're going to, you know, fix this, you know, make it better, whatever. Well, there's reports right now that they're doing the same thing with Indiana. They're about to do a full-scale renovation to Memorial Stadium. Now, I don't know if that means that they're going to expand it much or not, maybe a little bit, but they are going to make the entire experience better, you know, for fans, like because people have complained that, you know, yeah, it's not the best, you know, like situation to get in and out of the stadium. It's kind of cramped because it's an old stadium and it wasn't built for this many people, you know, like actually showing up. Because Indiana normally never has people there. But I do think, though, that with this success Indiana is having and the amount of money that Indiana is getting, they made a ton in NIL the other day when they had a big, you know, NIL initiative on social media that I think they will really make upgrades to the stadium. And that's going to be a part of Cignetti's appeal, you know, pitch to stay. And like you said, I mean, he loves this because people doubted IU. Nobody said that Indiana would ever be good. Cignetti couldn't do it, and now he's doing it. And like you said, you know, it's bigger than himself. Like he's building up a program that never wins, and that's going to look better in the long run than going 9-3 at Florida. It just will. So yeah, to me, I mean, for Cignetti, he's in the perfect spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you go 9-3 at Florida, they'll throw you in the trash.
You go 9-3 at Indiana. I mean, you see what they're doing going 10-0. Yep. I mean, it's unbelievable. Sports Style with Austin says, "What happened? Who did we lose? Did I miss something?" You lost an edge rusher named Tyrone Burris. He was a high 3-star, low 4-star guy. He decommitted from Louisville today, committed to IU, because he was an in-state guy as well. He was an in-state guy in the state of Indiana, but he committed to Louisville because he was probably expecting Louisville to be better. But, Indiana ended up having this great season, so he's like, I want to be a part of it. So it's a tough loss for Louisville, but they'll be fine. The Godfather of the SEC says Kurt was under Nick from 07 to 2010. He had a great teacher. Absolutely. That was a big reason when he got the job that I was like, I like this hire. Cignetti was under Nick Saban from 07 to 2010 and honestly could have been under him a lot longer, but he decided to leave Alabama, where he had a secure job. He's doing really good. And go to Indiana University of Pennsylvania, a Division II school, to be their head coach because he said he wanted to be a head coach and he was already in his late 40s at that point. And he said, I didn't feel like I was, or I think early 50s actually. Yeah, he's about 50. I think he was 50 years old when he got the Indiana University of Pennsylvania job. He said that he wanted to be a head coach. He didn't think he was ever going to get a shot at it. So he took a chance, even though everybody told him he was nuts for doing it. Who leaves Alabama to go to a Division II school?
Yeah.
Who does that? Absolutely nobody does that. He's probably one of the only people in history to ever do that. So he's a unique person. He's a unique individual. That's why I think he stays in Indiana. This is a unique spot.
I mean, guys like him, you don't get that from everybody in college football.
No, you don't. I mean, it's crazy. Most guys would stay at Alabama until they get a big coaching job. At least, even if it's like a group of 5, like a decent group of 5, like a Boise UCF or something when UCF was in the group of 5, something like that, not a Division II school. It's just crazy. He took an unconventional path and it paid off for him. And he said he wanted to stay at James Madison, but he just saw the opportunity at Indiana was too good to pass up. A program that was destitute, that had no success, and he was like, I can make that program win. And he is. Against all odds, too. So, and Austin says Jeff Brom uses the portal really well. We'll be fine. Absolutely. And so does Cignetti. So, I mean, honestly, I think both teams will be fine next year. But we'll see. Only time will tell.
But, our game against Mercer, again, looks to be an easy one. But at the same time, we've seen what happens when you think your game is easy. It bites you. And who do you hope to see from that lineup? Like, from the second, third string on Saturday?
Well, I mean, I would say, because we've already had people asking about it, before, but with Ty Simpson, I mean, definitely if Alabama blows them out, which they should, you would like to see Ty Simpson come in and see if he does well. I mean, in limited opportunities, he just hasn't really done that much, which is why I'm like, I don't think Ty Simpson should surpass Milroe. That's just ludicrous. But at the same time, I mean, Alabama is going to have to replace Milroe after the season. So if Ty Simpson's going to be the guy and it's not going to be a portal guy, then we need to see more from Ty Simpson. So I'd like to see him. I would like to see him. Godfather of the SEC says Indiana was 8-5 in 2019. Yeah, they were. They were 8-5. You are correct. And they had a decent year and they went 6-2 in 2020. They can win. But this is different, though. This is a complete team. Whereas those seasons, it felt like it was just Penix doing the heavy lifting. And their O-line was trash that year. They actually have a good O-line this year. But I'm looking at Mercer, Jackson. I'm looking at Mercer's schedule. And they have won most of their games. But
yeah, they've only got one loss.
Haven't played anybody. Their only loss is Samford. But, I mean, some of these wins.
55-35.
Some of these wins, I mean, beating on Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman is terrible. Beating Princeton, the Virginia Military Institute, VMI. I mean, these are just bad bad teams. So this shouldn't be
Yeah.
close. This should not be close. If this game is close, that's all Bama. That's all Bama just sucking. That would just be them going out there and playing a D- to an F game. So I mean, I'm not worried about this game at all. I mean, honestly, there just really isn't much to say. I mean,
True.
I still think these type games are stupid, to be honest. I mean, I don't know why Alabama has to play teams like this toward the end of the season. It's just a stupid game. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense. I mean, if you're going to have a non-conference game at this point, play like UCF or something. Play somebody that has a pulse.
Or maybe at least like a let me look. How about an Iowa State? Or maybe an Arizona State?
You talked about Georgia Tech a lot. So
I know, right?
Past history with them. So I mean, play
Yes.
them. Play Georgia
I know,
Tech.
right?
I
don't want to wait till 2029 for that game to come back. I want to come back.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely bring back old rivalries. I wish they'd bring Indiana, Kentucky back in football, even though it would hurt Indiana, on making a bowl game if they're having a bad season. But as long as they keep Signetti, I'd be less worried about it. So play Kentucky. Get the Louisville game back sometime. I mean, that'd be fine. I mean, the thing is that like people keep making fun of Indiana for getting rid of the Louisville game, and Tom Allen got rid of the Louisville game. Kurt Signetti didn't get rid of the Louisville game. He wouldn't have gotten rid of the Louisville game.
Kurt Signetti would have thrown a fit at that.
Yeah, he wasn't hired yet. So this is a new Indiana. I love this comment from Rough Rider. I wish the Sooners would have had Mercer scheduled. Yeah, you'd be undefeated right now until this game.
That's fun.
The thing is, though, is if Oklahoma had that schedule, though, I mean, they'd have started out ranked high, so they wouldn't have moved down. But, I mean, that's not impressive at all. I know you're kidding, though. That's hilarious. I mean, Oklahoma, they're just the definition of mid. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this season, they're just mid. They're not horrible, but they're not good. I mean, that Missouri game was a train wreck, man. That was a train wreck. That game felt like it was on acid, man, how bad it was at the end. I mean, you had Oklahoma scoop and score, the Missouri scoop and score, targeting's not called, people getting their heads, knocked off. It was terrible. I mean, it was just a bizarre game. I was like, I just got done seeing Alabama beat LSU down. I flip it over to Oklahoma, Missouri, and I'm just like, wow, what
How did Oklahoma lose that one?
They had it, man. They had the game, and they just gave it away. They gave it away. I mean, they're not terrible. No. But honestly, losing to Drew Pond, though. Ugh.
Yikes.
Not pretty. Godfather of the SEC says Georgia Tech used to be a big game for Bama. Last time we played was 84. And that's a travesty. I mean, to have a team that you used to play all the time and you had a long-standing history with and to not play them for 40 years is a joke. I mean,
I know, right?
That's almost what makes college basketball scheduling better because you do have big non-conference games and they don't hurt your schedule.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Carolina losing to Kansas. Duke losing to Kentucky. Does it hurt those teams? No, it doesn't hurt them at all. You lost the game, and the fact that you were close, it was a close loss, it's not even going to hurt your computer metrics and all that junk. The computer metrics matter these days. But that don't hurt you. But in football, you lose a big non-conference game, your season's done. Yeah, you got a 12-team playoff now, but it still makes it significantly harder, to make a playoff if you have a tough non-conference. I mean, look at Michigan. They won it all last year, and they had the most garbage non-conference schedule. Look at Indiana. They're fifth in the nation right now, and they had a garbage non-conference. It's showing you that they're basically rewarding teams for playing nobody. So it's not worth playing these hard non-conference games. Honestly, it just isn't.
I mean, it's just insane. And because like the Godfather, the SC has a great point with Georgia Tech, Alabama being how it used to be a big one. Because I mean, we could look back at like games like 1981 where like Georgia Tech had their only win of the season that year against Alabama. Or if you want to look back at really old games like 1960, for example, that was when like Alabama was wearing the white helmets, Pat Trammell was getting hurt, so they had a guy coming in the second half. Boom, they were coming back all over the place, and game-winning field goal. Alabama wins a tight one against Georgia Tech in 1960. It was just it was a great one right there. It's like for me, that's one of my favorite games of all time in all of for Alabama football. Bobby Skelton, that was his name. It was. Man, I gotta make sure I'm not eating stuff that's getting my brain cells out of my brain.
I don't think so, man. I just think like you got so much knowledge in there of past college football history, man. You study that stuff so much. I'm like, man, it would make my head fall off. You know what I'm saying? Like I know a little bit. I know a little bit of college football history, man, but that's just hard. I mean, that is just hard to remember. But it's good. It's good stuff to know. Absolutely. I love taking the time and looking at Bama's history and Indiana's and some other teams' history when I have the chance. Just definitely tough. We got a comment from the Godfather saying, I hope Indiana runs the rest of their schedule. Is it possible they would play Ohio State twice? Unfortunately, well, probably fortunately, I would say that. But for you viewers, like non-Indiana fans, unfortunately, no, they wouldn't. Because if Indiana beats Ohio State's out of the Big Ten title race. It's going to be Oregon. It would be Oregon and Indiana playing in that game. So, yeah, Ohio State would be done. And think about this. Ohio State, if they had a loss to Penn State, this would be an elimination game.
Yeah.
Think about that. This game against Indiana would be an elimination game. Or if they had a loss to Nebraska, it would have been an elimination game.
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State, yeah, they got a couple big wins, all that, whatever, and they're second in the sport right now. But, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, is Ohio State really that good? Are they really that good? I don't know.
The easy schedule has been helping them out a little bit. And plus,
Penn State choked.
Just can't get it done.
Choked.
They're like Charlie Brown at the freaking pitcher's mound. They're like,
Penn State is annoying. They're like Auburn, but not crap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Auburn sucks. Like, they're horrible. But then you got Penn State, and it's like, Penn State's good. They're a good team, but they still suck. They can't win the game, man. And like Indiana, okay, people be like, oh, well, Indiana didn't beat them if they lose. We're talking about Penn State here. Penn State's not Indiana. Penn State was at home in front of 105,000 screaming fans at Beaver Stadium. Don't care that it wasn't at night. They had a 10-0 lead on the Buckeyes after that pick six, and you still lose.
They
blew it. 6 points of total offense. You're at home. Okay? That's why Penn State is pathetic. They are pathetic. They're one of the most frustrating teams in the world, man. Like, most programs would kill to be Penn State. They're 10-2 every year, basically. They're a good program.
Well, this year they'll be 11-1.
Better than that.
This year they'll be 11-1 because of the rest of their games they got. I mean,
they didn't have Michigan this year.
They don't have Oregon.
They didn't have Oregon this year.
They don't have Indiana.
They don't have Indiana. That USC game, though, is the game I knew Penn State wasn't legit. I knew it. They barely beat USC. Okay, this comment right here is just hilarious. Penn State would smoke Indiana. Really? I don't think so. I mean, out of 10 matchups, maybe Penn State would blow Indiana out in one of them, but not in if you play 10 times. Because Penn State is just mid. They're just a mid team, man. I mean, they're a good mid team. They're not mid. Oklahoma, unfortunately, is mid this year. But they're still just not there. They barely beat Illinois. They barely beat USC. They choked against Ohio State. Penn State's frustrating. Penn State is frustrating. They are a frustrating team. I mean, like I said, there is a chance that Penn State would blow out Indiana, and out of 10 matchups, they'd do it once, but they wouldn't in most scenarios. It would be probably a close win for either team. Penn State could beat Indiana very easily, but Indiana could beat them. Stephen Cherry saying hit the like button. Appreciate that, Stephen.
Exactly. Like, comment, subscribe, click on that notification bell so you do not miss another video whatsoever. And let's beat Texas to 3,000 subs.
Oh, absolutely. I love this comment from Rough Rider saying a hog knows more about trigonometry than I know about college football. I doubt that. I mean, maybe you don't know much history of college football because, I mean, I'm probably with you, Rough Rider. There's not a lot. I don't like deep dive into the past like before I was born much. If it's modern day football, like the stuff I've watched, I know basically all of it because I watched it. History, I know some, but just don't deep dive. I don't have the time to go into the annals and memorize all the Heisman winners and everything. But I'm sure you know, boy, I don't think a hog knows much about trig. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't think so.
Here we go. And we got the call-in link in the chat if you want to come on in and discuss your take on the latest in Alabama football. Whether you love them or don't love them, you're welcome to come on in and call in, folks.
The funny thing about this 103rd ranked schedule thing is that there's tons of teams that have had garbage schedules this year, like Miami. Miami's schedule was garbage, and look what they did.
Why did they move back the Notre Dame game? We could have had a Catholics versus Convicts 36th anniversary. Oh, well, we got next year.
So. Yeah, that'd have been great. But, I mean, like, Miami's schedule was easy. I mean, there's a lot of teams at the top that haven't had the hardest schedule. I mean, BYU's isn't ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
I mean, Indiana, like I said, the thing that's been most impressive is the fact that they've blown everyone out until Michigan. And Michigan's probably the most talented 5-5 team in college football. They just have no quarterback play. They have no quarterback play. You put Cam Ward on Michigan, and they're suddenly a top 10 team. It's as simple as that. They don't have quarterback play. And, yeah, if Michigan had Cam Ward, they probably beat Indiana. The way IU played. I will say that. IU didn't play well. But if Indiana had to play the way they did in the first half all game, they'd have won by more. But they did choke. They fell apart, but they held on. But, yeah, I mean, Michigan's, again, most talented 5-5 team in college football, I'd probably say. I mean, unless I'm missing something. I mean, Michigan is really talented. They just don't have a good quarterback. All of them are horrible. I appreciate you for stopping by, Steven, as always. You could have called in if you wanted to, but definitely appreciate you for stopping by. Definitely see you next week. And again, not worried about that Ohio State game yet. Excited about 10-0 and excited about Bama knocking off LSU, man, the way they did. I'm still very impressed with that win. Don't you think it's frustrating, though, that Bama has been such a roller coaster, though? Because if they had have played the way they did against LSU, against Vandy and Tennessee, they'd be undefeated right now.
Oh, yeah.
They would be undefeated right now. But they're not. It is what it is. But that's what worries me, though, Jackson, is can Bama be consistent enough to even have a shot to win it all? Even if they make the playoff. Because the thing is that they're not consistent. I think this team has proven that they're not consistent. What we need to see in these next 3 games against Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn is can they be consistent? Can Alabama be consistent? If they can't, they're not a championship contender.
I feel like maybe we are at that point where we're getting consistent. Like after what I've seen and what we've all seen from the game against Missouri, I feel like we're gaining back what we had against Georgia. I'm not trying to get anybody's hopes up too much, but it's just I'm just saying what I see. It's just kind of like DeBoer's first season at Washington. Lost 2 straight, then they went on a winning streak. I feel like that's where we're at for Alabama. I would not be surprised if we get on a win, which, I mean, we should, but we'll wait and see. I mean, we've gotten that running game up. And you said yourself last week that was key to victory against LSU. And that was definitely key against Missouri. And it was. It really helped. We keep doing what we're doing on the running game, and we get a little more of a passing game, we should be good to go. And, you know, Oklahoma and Auburn are fighting for bowl eligibility. They definitely want to be that team that knocks Alabama out of the playoff race to clinch bowl eligibility. They want to be that team. So that's something Alabama can't forget.
Absolutely. I mean, I love this comment from Troy V. What I noticed about Bam is they're very dependent on Milroe. If he's on his game, they probably win. But if he's off his game, they're beatable. And that's where the run game is so important because it makes Milroe not have to be Superman. Yeah, he has to do everything for them to win. You don't need that. I mean, like Ohio State has been very lucky this year with all the talent they have on both sides of the ball that they really haven't had to have Will Howard really do much, because Will Howard's not winning Ohio State football games. The rest of their team is. And also, again, Penn State just being Penn State. But that's the thing, though. Like, if Will Howard would have had to be the way Milroe's had to be in some of these games this year to win, Ohio State would probably have 3 losses right now.
If Ohio State was going against like somebody like Texas, they'd be in trouble. If they were going against the Oregon team, I think Oregon would beat them again.
Ohio State played well against Oregon. They did. They didn't win, though. They did not play good against Nebraska. They sucked against Nebraska. And against Penn State, I don't really know what to think because on the one hand, their defense did great. They didn't allow Penn State to do anything. But that also kind of speaks volumes to Penn State that they're just not good enough offensively. And outside of Will Howard's egregious pick six, I mean, Ohio State dominated the game. So they played well against Penn State. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Ohio State played well against Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, I would almost say that was their best performance against Oregon or the Penn State game, besides Will Howard's pick six. Besides Will Howard's pick six, I mean, Ohio State basically just blanked Penn State. They blanked them. But the issue is that Ohio State didn't run up the score either. That's the thing. I don't. Will Howard's just not striking me as dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Like if Indiana can make Will Howard throw a pick six or like Penn State did, I think Indiana has a shot. I do. The only thing I'm worried about, though, is that after Michigan limited Curtis Rourke, Ohio State could do the same because Ohio State's defense is good, very talented. So Ohio State's a good team. But the point is, though, getting back to Bama, because this all relates to that, is Ohio State's quarterback, Will Howard, does not have to win a game for Ohio State for them to win. They just doesn't because the rest of their team can do it. Whereas Bama this year, we've seen a lot of games where Milroe had to be the guy. Like against Vanderbilt, Milroe had to play well to win, and he didn't. He didn't play good enough. He played all right, but he didn't play good enough. He made mistakes. Bama lost to Vandy. That should never happen. Bama should have enforced their will on Vanderbilt. They should have ran the ball down Vanderbilt's throat because Bama's O-line and their running game should have easily been able to do that against a team like Vandy, and their defense should have been able to not allow Vandy to have 40. But Bama's defense did. And yeah, that's a hangover game too, but still, it doesn't matter. That's just my opinion. With Milroe, I feel like Bama needs to run the ball, limit Milroe having to do as much as he's had to do. And the other thing that I really think hurts Bama this year is, to me, they don't have a clear wide receiver number 2. They don't have that. They got Ryan Williams, and then who else? Nobody can name a person. Nobody can name anybody. Who is there? C.J. Dupree at tight end? Bernard? I mean, who? It's just average, man. Alabama doesn't have the quartet with Judy and Ruggs and Devontae Smith and all those guys. They don't have those guys. It's not the same.
We're not in the Julio Jones, Marquise Mays days, unfortunately.
No, it's not the same. So it's just one guy in Ron Williams who's very youthful, but he's very good. And then everything else is just kind of average for Bama standards. I mean, most teams would love to have the players Bama has on offense, but for Bama, it's just a down offensive team. They don't have as many good players on offense.
We got a good question from our buddy Sports Talk with Austin, and he's asking us, how early do you want to see the backups play on Saturday?
Mid-second quarter.
I'm thinking about the start of the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, mid-second quarter to start of the third. I mean, if that's happening, they're beating them 49-0. The thing is everybody. I'll never forget the game against the Citadel when Bama was tied 10-10 with them. People are, oh my gosh, Alabama's going to lose. Bama beat them like 60-10. So even if this game's close at half, Bama will run away with it eventually, like they did against South Florida this year. South Florida's better than Mercer, but still, I mean, the Citadel, that was a game. That was a fluky game with that. You know, I'll never forget Nick Saban was mad. He was infuriated that they were tied 10-all with the Citadel. But then in the second half, they just destroyed them. So, but I mean, it would be nice to see it mid-second quarter or start of the third. But even if it's a little bit later than that, as long as they just blow them out, that's all they need to do.
True. I mean, that's all we really got to do.
Out hustle them. That's all you got to do is just out hustle them. Use your
Hustle.
physicality. Because, I mean, Mercer doesn't have one guy that has the physicality of Bama. Not one. So it's effort.
True.
If Alabama loses this game or if it's a close win, it's just effort. I mean, it shouldn't be close. Bama should just out hustle them, out muscle them. It should be easy.
True. I mean, that's all we got to do is keep hustling.
This is a game that you don't even have to scheme, basically. You don't even have to scheme. You just have to play harder than them. I mean, honestly, you don't want to say it like that, but honestly, I mean, if Alabama was playing again a team like UCF, then you'd have to scheme them. You know, find out what they do and beat them. You know, beat them at their game. But against a team like Mercer, if you just play harder than the other team, you're going to win. Yeah. Alabama's O lines and D lines are so much better than Mercer's. It's not even a competition. You just have to play hard.
Yeah, that's all we got to do. So, and we've got the link in the chat for those who want to come on in and call in, give their take. It's all in the chat.
Troy V says Bama should work on getting someone to become wide receiver too. Other stuff they need to tweak this week. Yeah, absolutely. This is a tweak week. The small things, improve in the small things. Yeah, it's late in the season, but there's always small things you can get better at. And the thing with the wide receiver number 2 is that I don't think that's even going to really happen. It's too late in the year for someone to emerge. I mean, Bernard's okay. I mean, he's fine. But it's just, it is what it is. I mean, Alabama just doesn't have a deep wide receiver room. Guys that are productive. They just don't have that this year. I mean, Bama's been spoiled by it in the past few years. Spoiled. I mean, just some of those receiver rooms, man. Wow. I mean, there are guys on the bench that were good. This year, not so much. I mean, Bama honestly better be glad they have Ron Williams, because if they didn't have Ron Williams, it would be kind of ugly.
Screwed.
It'd be kind of ugly. And that's why it's kind of shocking Cunningham didn't go to Bama, because he could have easily gotten into the rotation. But again, you know, Ole Miss probably still a better chance to start, I guess. But it's just crazy. I mean, it's not like Bama's receiver room's just absolutely loaded. They got guys, but if you're good, you're gonna play. You're gonna play.
That's true.
It's not like a Jameson Williams deal when he was at Ohio State, where they literally had so many good receivers he couldn't break through the rotation, and then he transferred to Alabama and had a great season.
I like that idea from Sports Talk with Austin. Get healthy this week. I wish this was a spring game. Everyone wins. Mercer gets their money, and Bama gets reps.
Why don't they do that? I mean, honestly, I think I've even said that before as well on some show, probably a year or two ago. I can't remember when I said it, but I know I did say that before. It's a great point, Austin. Absolutely. Why? Why can't you just have Alabama and these teams play the Mercers in the spring game? Why can't you do that? Like you said, Mercer's still going to get money, you know, the money they need for their program to exist. And Bama gets to play somebody. You know, I get that you don't want guys getting hurt, and in spring games, it's kind of finicky or whatever, gimmicky. Some programs do their spring games a lot different than others. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like Alabama playing Mercer at this point in the college football season is just hilariously stupid. It is. I mean, I'm a Bama fan through and through, and I won't defend it. I'm not going to defend it. It's stupid. It's stupid. All these SEC teams that play these type of games at this point in the season, it's bad enough to play it in week 1 or week 2, but to play this now is just garbage. It's ridiculous.
I mean, if you just have to have it, play it in week 0.
Week 0, do week 0. I mean, because you don't want week 1 because you got to have big games in week 1, right? Well, just have it in week 0. Why don't you just have these teams play in week 0? Have them, Bama get their tune-up, Ohio State get their tune-up, and then have, the Bama Texases and stuff like that when that was a non-conference game, like stuff like that. Well, why can't you do that? I mean, that's what people like the Clemson, Georgia. Have Clemson have a tune-up game, Georgia have a tune-up game versus Mercer and the Citadel, and then let them play in week 1. That would be so much better. And then these teams would have a game under their belt, and then they might be better prepared for that game instead of them just going full into it. Like you haven't played anybody in your first games against a great team like that. It's insane.
It's just terrible.
Tennessee UTEP's not even completely sad. I mean, it's bad, but at least UTEP's is something. I mean, I know UMass is technically in the FBS too, but UMass is really, really sad. I mean, UMass in UConn, until now UConn's actually okay. The last few years, those two were just horrible. One of the worst programs in the world is Maine. Like Maine football. There's a reason that Alaska doesn't have a football team. Because I was reading into that, like, why does Alaska not have a football team? It's just kind of obvious why they don't. But I was reading into it, and they're like, well, the conditions don't really, or it's not suitable for play, blah, blah, blah. Well, technically, Hawaii's not either. That's why Aloha Stadium rusted out. They don't play the Pro Bowl anymore. They got rid of it. Now Hawaii plays in a small field. Probably contributes to why they're not as good anymore either, because Aloha Stadium was actually a decent home field advantage in its heyday, but it's gone. But that beside the point, Alaska is just not suitable for, like a football stadium that well. So they don't have a football team, but there actually is a University of Alaska. And it exists. It's in Anchorage. You can have a football team. They don't have a football team. They probably never will have a football team. But you got one in Maine. You got one in New Hampshire, stuff like that. But those teams are bad. They're like, because nobody wants to play there. Who wants to play on Maine football? I mean, you got to be desperate. You got to be desperate to want to play at Maine football. I'm sorry, I'm not trashing the Maine Black Bears, but it's sad. It is bad. Like, no.
They certainly don't have any bare necessities in Maine. They're just like, good God.
Even Maine basketball, like Cooper Flagg that got Duke. I know we're going off the rails here, sorry, but the Cooper Flagg that got Duke basketball, he was from Maine. He was from Maine. He didn't play at Maine basketball. He went to Duke. So we got Troy V say, come for the football, stay for the lobster roll. Absolutely.
Right,
you want to go to Maine, get the lobster roll. Absolutely. They got good fish up there.
Oh, man.
Cheaper, too.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you even managed to defeat Maine. I would hope so, Rough Rider. I would hope so. I mean, there's a massive problem. Brent Venables would have been fired the second after that game. That happened. He'd have been done.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if it was up to me, too. I mean, in my definition of cupcakes is stuff like Mercer. I mean, Alabama could still play teams like, maybe you could have a UTEP in there, maybe, but Alabama should be playing.
How about like a Tulane or like a Boise State?
Yeah, Tulane,
North
Dakota State or something would even be decent enough. Like stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe at least App State.
Memphis.
It's like other than that, it's like FCS. Shoe. We'll play you in the spring.
Yeah, but we're not commissioners. We're not commissioners of the NCAA or college football or whatever, so we can't do anything about it. But if we were, I know I would change.
We're just here to talk about it.
Maybe one day, right? Maybe one day we'll be able to fix the crummy rules.
we're here to give you our takes on it. Other than that, that's it.
Maybe you can have an influence at the very least, right? You can have an influence.
Oh,
That
yeah.
seems to be the trending thing, right? If enough people complain about something, then it gets fixed, right? Yeah, not really though. In reality, not really. I mean, honestly, I don't ever like argue or complain about things unless it's just dumb. Like the targeting rule. I complain about the targeting rule, not for the targeting rule itself, but two things irritate me about the targeting rule. Number one is the fact that guys that barely hit the crown of the helmet that they eject, I don't think they should be ejected. I think they should get a 15-yard penalty and remain in the game. I think it should be like in basketball, how you have a flagrant 1 and a flagrant 2. So if you barely hit the helmet, it's a targeting 1 where the guy stays in the game and it's a 15-yard penalty. But if it's egregious, then it's a targeting 2 and he gets ejected. I think that's how that should work. A lot of guys get ejected for no reason. Second thing that irritates me about the targeting rule is I've seen probably 4 or 5 massive hits this year. Crown of the helmet, knocked the guy out, dude's dazed on the ground, and there's no call. That's what happened in the Oklahoma-Missouri game. There was a targeting at the end of that game where the guy was literally on the ground. He was dazed and confused, and they didn't call anything. No targeting, no penalty or nothing. But then, but in the Indiana-Michigan game, they called a really weak targeting on the Indiana defender. It wasn't even targeting. That's what I don't like about the targeting rule. It's inconsistent. When there actually is targeting, where a guy's health is actually impaired from the hit, they don't call it. But then a little minor hit, it's a penalty. That's what I hate about it. It's inconsistent. The refs are terrible at calling. Yeah, Bama Wake Forest would be okay. It'd be okay. Wait, it would have been better when Wake was actually good though. When they had Sam Hartman and A.T. Perry.
Or won the ACC in 2006 against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, they're really bad this year. I mean, Cal is not great, and Cal beat them, so.
Oh, yeah. Well, Troy V says he'd love to see a Big Ten SEC crossover series every year where you play teams each year that finished the last season similar to you. Think that would be epic. But my only drawback is, would that be the only game on the non-conference schedule? That's not gonna like destroy the rivalry games or destroy like any shot of old rivalries, because unfortunately we have a system where you don't get rewarded for strength of schedule.
That's the problem. That's what I'm saying. Like Indiana, Penn State, Miami, they're all in the college football playoff right now despite horrible strength of schedules. So playing nobody is better than playing somebody. You know what I'm saying? It actually helps to play nobody. I mean, honestly, do you think if Michigan, instead of having that garbage non-conference schedule, they had a tough non-conference schedule, playing like Oregon or playing,
Notre Dame,
SEC team, like Notre Dame or an LSU? Do you honestly think they win it all last year if they had a couple games like that in their non-conference? No. I don't think so.
They'd have beaten LSU and Notre Dame, but I don't know. I don't think they would have quite beaten Oregon.
The thing is, it's not even about whether they would have won or not. I'm talking about the fact that it beats your team up more. Like, for example, Indiana's had an easy schedule. Yeah, they've had an easy schedule. Everybody keeps talking about how they've had an easy schedule. Did you know that against Michigan, Indiana has suffered more injuries in that one game than the previous 9 combined?
Yep.
Why is that? Because Michigan has a bunch of guys that are going to be in the NFL, and they hit really hard. It's not surprising, is it? It's not surprising at all. So if you play a tougher schedule, don't you think maybe there's a little bit better of a chance that your team's going to get beat up and injured because you're playing tough games again and again and again? So it's kind of a little bit better to actually play nobody. You remember Clemson? When the 2 years Clemson won it all with Dabo, strength schedules weren't that good. So I'm just saying, honestly, I think that playing nobody, as long as the committee is not going to punish you for playing nobody, then play nobody. It doesn't make sense to have a tough non-conference schedule where your team's going to get beat up. You might lose. It's going to hurt your chances of getting in. It doesn't help. And like you said, if you play those games, then will some of the teams that have those rivalry games, will they get rid of those? Like you said, will Georgia Tech or the South Carolina Clemsons, will those go away because those teams are suddenly playing games against Big Ten teams in the non-conference? Will they get rid of their ACC rivalries? Stuff like that. So at the end of the day, it's not going to work. Troy says the committee could change the way they select. How can you, though? Indiana's won their games.
Yeah.
Alabama hasn't. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, it's hard to quantify your schedule, right? It's hard to quantify. That's why strength of record exists. Indiana right now is 6th in the nation in strength of record. What that means is that compared to how much they were favored to win against their opponents, Indiana has outperformed expectations against every team that they played except Michigan by blowing out Nebraska by 49 instead of that they were favored by 5, 4.5, whatever. They beat them by 49. That makes Indiana's strength of record look good because they've outperformed expectations. So there's really no way to quantify. I don't think. I mean, you'd have to expand the playoff. You'd have to expand the playoff to like 24 or 36 teams to even make that possible with a Big Ten SEC crossover, in my opinion. You'd have to do it like that where you wouldn't get punished for playing that game, where you could have 4 losses and still make the playoff. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, they're never. I don't think they're ever going to expand the playoff that much because it's too many games. Guys get hurt enough as it is. I think it's too many games. But I don't know. Money talks, so you never know.
Oh yeah.
Troy says we'll see how the committee treats strength of schedule this year if Ohio State beats Indiana if they get it left. Here's the thing. That's a great point, Troy. But the issue I think with that game is I really believe that 2 things. The strength of schedule doesn't matter with whether Indiana gets left out. That would be more of a brand thing. Because think about it. If it's Penn State, if Penn State and Indiana's schedule and their only loss was to Ohio State by 1 score, they're 11-1 because this is what they are right now. Penn State, I mean, their strength of schedule is not the best, right? It's not the greatest. Like they played West Virginia out of conference. Okay. Okay, it's all right. But they're going to go 11-1, and they're already ranked higher than Indiana right now. Their strength of schedule is not that good. It's not the worst, but it's not that good. But that would be a brand thing. Plus, I think Indiana's fine as long as they compete. It's like a TCU thing. Does anybody remember when TCU played Kansas State in the Big 12 title game, and everybody said as long as TCU doesn't get blown out, they're going to get in?
Mm-hmm.
I remember it. I was watching the game. Trust me, these commentators, they got earpiece. They know what's going on. That's why that whole debate with the Florida State thing, if they barely beat Louisville, they're not getting in the playoff. Well, guess what? They didn't get in the playoff. That's what happened, though. I remember they're like, if TCU, as long as they only lose by 10 or less, they're going to get in the playoff. They barely lost to K-State, so they put them in. If Indiana loses to Ohio State by 7 or 10, they're going to make the college football playoff. If they get beat by 40, then we got a problem. That's all it's about. The strength of schedule doesn't matter. The 2 things that matter is how much Indiana gets beat by and brand. Indiana's already getting kind of screwed over because of brand. It's not the strength of schedule. It's brand. Indiana's not a brand. If Michigan, Penn State, all these teams had the exact same schedule as Indiana, they'd be ranked higher right now.
Well, and you make a great point about brand and how it really helps. If Alabama is 10-2, and let's say they do somehow make it to the SEC title game due to all this crazy shenanigans going on the SEC this year, they go to the SEC title game. They're basically in win or lose because that's just how we're at. It's like if you go to the SEC title game or the Big Ten title game, you're in. ACC Big 12 can't really have that, unfortunately, for them. You basically have to win your conference if you're in the ACC or Big 12. If you're in like the top 4 of the SEC or Big 10, you're in.
But see, that's the whole issue with realignment. We already knew this was going to happen. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter if your favorite team is in one of those leagues, ACC or Big 12. Everybody knows for a 110% fact that when realignment happened, that those conferences are weaker. And the thing is that the ACC is intact. It's intact. But even before realignment, the ACC wasn't as strong of a league. It wasn't. It's just now that the Big Ten and the SEC are even better conferences, it makes the ACC look worse. In the Big 12, their brands were Oklahoma, Texas. That's it. There's not one other team. I don't know how many teams people want to call brands, like big brands of college football. But I think we can all agree that in the Big 12, anyway, the two brands were Oklahoma and Texas. Nothing else. Baylor's not a brand. TCU's not a brand. Iowa State's not a brand. West Virginia's not a brand. They're all right. They're a good program, but they're not a brand. Like the Big 10, they had three brands. Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. I know some people are going to say Iowa, Wisconsin. They're okay.
Nebraska.
The three brands. And then Nebraska was a brand.
True.
Nebraska is like Indiana basketball. It's the same thing. They are a brand, but in the modern day, they suck. I mean, They suck, man. Like, Indiana basketball sucks. Like, I tell Indiana fans all the time, like, Indiana basketball, you are a brand, but you've sucked for 20 years. Like, you can't keep resting on the laurels of the past. You've got to win something, man. Like Nebraska, make the playoff. Indiana basketball, make another Final Four. You do that, you're back. But you're not back until you do that. Nebraska is a brand, but right now they're not a brand. But you add USC and Oregon to the Big Ten, and Washington to a lesser extent. Washington, and Nebraska are But you got, like, the Big Ten's now got 5 or 6, maybe even 7 at the max brands. Michigan State, they're fine. They're all right. I mean, Michigan State's more of a Wisconsin, Iowa. But then Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. But then you go to the SEC. You've got Texas. You got Oklahoma. You got Bama. You got LSU. You got Tennessee. You see what I'm saying here? What's the ACC got? Clemson, Florida State, Miami.
Yeah,
that's it. And like those teams, Florida State's horrible this year. Miami has been bad for 20 years. They're like Nebraska, but they're getting there. But they're still overrated.
I feel like
they were. And then the Big 12 is nobody.
Yeah, and you made a great point about like the relics of the past.
Mm-hmm.
That teams can't be relying on that. If SMU is losing in the ACC title game, like they finished season at 11-2, I don't see them getting in as an at-large team, unfortunately, because they can't rely on the relics of the past of, well, we did all right in the 1930s. Hell, we got Doak Walker. Oh, well, we got the 80s and this, that, and the... They can't rely on
SMU
that.
should not be bragging about the 80s, okay?
No. I don't think that'll happen, but in all seriousness, though, SMU will have to win the ACC to get in the playoffs. And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of people that watched SMU BYU that night. They were thinking about the Packers Eagles, where Jordan Love was getting hurt in that matchup in Brazil, or Kansas Illinois. Little did anybody know that SMU BYU would be that game that we would all be looking back at as a total game changer, possibly for the CFP. To me, it's the most underrated game of the 2024 season.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. But the thing is honestly, Miami losing to Georgia Tech helps Indiana. It helps Penn State. It helps all these teams in the hunt, right? Because think about it. If Miami had have won all their games in the regular season and then played SMU in the ACC title game and lost, that's a 2-bit ACC. That's a 2-bit ACC. SMU would have been in because they'd have won the ACC, and Miami would have gotten in with one loss. Now that Miami's lost to Georgia Tech, do you think Miami still has a shot to get in with a loss to SMU in the ACC title game? I don't think so. I don't think they get in with 2 losses. I think there's a chance, but I don't see it though.
I feel like they get in because they've got that brand name, and
they shouldn't.
Agreed. Like, we don't think they should. We don't think they should. But there's a lot of people that are obsessed with the 80s this and the 80s that.
Who cares?
Exactly. And
I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm saying the same thing as Indiana basketball. Oh, we won in the 80s. Who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, win something now. Miami win.
I think there's a few committee members that just see Miami as a big ratings draw And they're like, oh my God, the 80s rebrand of the U. Let's
Okay,
bring
so
it
let me
back.
ask you this, Jackson. So Indiana loses by 7 to Ohio State. 1 loss Indiana, 2 loss Miami. Who's in?
Oh, I put in Indiana.
Okay.
That's just me. Like,
But what's the committee gonna do? Because if the
exactly.
committee puts Miami in over Indiana, that's absolute horse crap.
I feel like the committee is gonna do something screwy.
If they put in Miami over Indiana, I mean, really, you trying to tell me that that's fair?
It's not.
Because what happened to the Big Ten is superior. The SEC is superior. Well, Miami's in a crummy conference, okay? They're in a crummy league. They playing nobody. Like, so you're trying to tell me that when Miami's beating up on Virginia Tech and they're beating up on Cal and all that, that those are more impressive wins than Indiana beating Michigan and Nebraska and Washington. Who's better? In your opinion, let me ask you a question.
All right.
Who is the 3 better teams? A combine of Georgia Tech, Cal, and Virginia Tech, or Michigan, Nebraska, Washington?
Michigan, Ohio State, Washington. Especially when you got College Game Day, having Lee Corso Day, celebrating the first annual day on Indiana, Washington.
I mean, think about it. Indiana beat Nebraska, Washington, and Michigan.
They obliterated.
And think about this. What kills me is, Indiana's beat nobody. Washington was in the title game last year. Michigan won it all last year.
Yep.
Nebraska was hyped up, man. They were hyped up this year. Oh, they're going to go 9-3. Now they're falling apart. But really, I mean, I just don't think that's fair. And the thing is, like Austin says, Miami is better wins. What wins are better? Florida? Okay, Florida.
That's a trash win. I mean,
Florida. I mean, is Florida better than Michigan?
No.
I mean, I'm just being honest here. Is Florida better than Michigan?
Would smack them.
I don't know. I mean, with Lagway, maybe. The thing is guess what? Miami beat Florida without Lagway. It was Mertz. So I don't know, man.
If Michigan went up against the Graham Mertz team of Florida,
Michigan wins.
Michigan would snap them like Thanos.
I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, Indiana's schedule is not good. I get it. But Indiana has beaten teams with a pulse. Miami has 2, I guess, but they beat Virginia Tech and Cal by nothing. By 1 point against Cal. 1 point. Cal lost to Florida State, folks. Cal lost to Florida State. And Miami won by 1. Okay? Miami's not legit.
Nope.
Indiana might not be either, but the only reason Miami's still in this thing is because it's Miami. They're a brand. But really, guys, come on.
Oh,
Miami is not that good.
If they were, oh man, we'll see Miami in the playoffs, and once we do, they will get manslaughtered in the quarterfinals. Like that. That's gonna be a New Year's Eve right there. And we got our first caller of the night from Sports Talk with Austin himself, Austin Williams. How you doing tonight, good buddy?
Well, I was going to stay quiet, but Jeffrey, I will not stand for your disrespect of the ACC.
I knew it.
Listen here, Jeffrey. Listen, I know this is Alabama, but to answer your question first, because I have manners, I'm doing pretty good, Jackson. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
But Jeffrey, you've done it now, young man. I'm going to school you now. I'm going to have to spank you like your mama did after you got in trouble.
Okay, that's a little bit extreme, okay? I mean, come on. You know as well as I do, Austin, that the ACC is way behind the SEC and the Big Ten. Realignment's to blame. I'm not in favor of this. I'd rather it go back to the 80s. How many times have I said that? I want the Southwest Conference back. I want the Big 8 back. I want the Big East back. I want it all back. It's not coming back. The Big Ten and the SEC are just far superior now. They bought their way to the top. They balled their way to the top. The ACC's behind. It's just not as good of a league. Not even close.
See, here's the thing, though, Jeffrey. But your argument, though, is Indiana and Miami. And I know this is Alabama. I do have some Alabama questions for you, bud. I will start with this. Here's my thing, Jeffrey. You're telling me Indiana has better wins than Miami, correct? That's where you stand.
Yes, I do.
So, Jeffrey, let me ask you something. What would you consider Indiana's 3 best wins?
Nebraska, Washington, and Michigan.
Okay, so Miami's 3 best wins would probably be Florida, Louisville, and Virginia Tech.
I forgot about Louisville.
Don't forget about Louisville.
They lost to Georgia Tech, which is something Indiana doesn't have as a loss. And yeah, they beat. They barely beat them though, man. I mean, come on, dude. Like Indiana has one close win this year, one. Okay, over Michigan, and Miami has barely beat Louisville. They barely beat Cal. They barely beat. I mean, Virginia Tech. They should have lost that game. That's debatable whether that was actually a drop or not or whatever. I still feel that they lost that game. But the Cal game, you can't even defend that crap. Cal lost to Florida State. Cal stinks. And Miami was down by 25 to Cal. And they won by 1. That game, you want to talk about the most irritating game of the season for me? That game. Because if they had lost that game, nobody would be talking about Miami right now. We wouldn't even have to be hearing about Miami. Miami would be done. They would be in the garbage bin where they've been for the last 20 years. No one would care. But since they won that game, man, but Indiana barely beat Michigan, the team that won it all last year, oh, they suck, man. They're horrible. Ugh. But Miami, 1-point win over Cal, who lost to Florida State. That, to me, erases Miami.
Jeffrey, here's the thing. And here's how I want to emphasize. You and Jackson are talking brand biasing and everything. I honestly think I honestly believe, I feel like especially if Miami beats SMU, I think they will have 3 quality wins on their schedule. But here's the thing. Indiana could stop all this discussion right here, just win next week, and there's going to be no problems.
They most likely won't beat Ohio State. They most likely won't win that game. But to me, that should not just – see, you're saying Indiana can end all this discussion by beating Ohio State next week. So, okay, Miami. What if Miami's next game was Ohio State and it was in the shoe? Will we be saying the same thing? No. We'd be saying right now, if Miami, as long as they're competitive with the Buckeyes, that shows cases Miami's good. That's what we'd be saying right now. Because it's IU, and they're not a brand, which is my whole point. They got to win. They got to beat the Buckeyes, or that means they suck. That's crap. I'm sorry, but that is crap. I'm not even saying this from an Indiana fan perspective. This is just biased as a whole. The only reason that I'm not saying anything negative, Austin, but the only reason that you are defending Miami at all is because they're in the ACC. That's it. They're not good. You know it as well as I do. They're not good.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though. This is going to correlate to Alabama perfectly. So Alabama, a couple years ago with Bryce Young, kept winning close game after close game after close game. Where was everyone to say, where was everyone to question Alabama that year? It was because they're Alabama.
To me, that was them declining. Bama was starting to decline. Bama was getting a pass, though, because it's Bama.
Jackson and you, Jeffrey, might have been the ones. But I'm talking as overall broad, like the media, like the media as a whole. They were like, Alabama, what a gutsy team this is. And Indiana's blowing people out. Like you said, I get it. They should get a little more credit. But how come we're changing the narrative all of a sudden, Jeffrey? Why can't Miami be a gutsy team like Alabama was? How come?
Because Alabama's better than Miami. I mean, that's not even close to a debate either.
No, but here's the thing. It's a narrative
that year that Alabama was barely beating teams was still better than Miami is this year.
It's a narrative thing, though, Jeffrey. That's the thing, though.
But
because
see,
you're
the
trying to
issue
tell
is that
me.
the narrative by the media is that Miami's good. I'm going against the media by saying Miami's not.
I mean, here's the thing, though, Jeffrey. You have to be somewhat decent to keep pulling those games out, though. Do you not agree or disagree?
Yeah, Miami's decent. They're just not really good. They're not the 9th best team in the country. Just like IU's probably not the 5th. But I would vouch for Indiana being closer to 5th than Miami is to 9th.
And here's the thing, Jeffrey. I want to make this very perfectly clear. I'm not saying they're anywhere near Alabama's level. Alabama went to the national title that year. I'm not going to go out and say, oh, this is Alabama 2.0 from 2022-21. Miami's more likely not going to go to the national title game. Let's be honest.
No, that's the point. Alabama that year is better than Miami is this year. That's all my argument is. And it's just based off the fact that Alabama actually has great players, whereas Miami's got cardiac Cam Ward saving the day every week. That's it. And then against Georgia Tech, because he blows it. Yeah, Restrepo's fine. He's a fine player, but I mean that's like saying Penix and Ty Fryfogle in 2020 for Indiana. That's why I'm saying this year's Indiana team's better than the Penix teams, because Indiana actually has a team. Indiana's got like 5 or 6 players on all conference award lists. Miami's got like two players doesn't make you a team. Just like last year, it was just Shadur and Travis Hunter. The only reason Colorado's better this year is because actually more players are stepping up. It's not just Shadur and Travis Hunter. You can't have 2 players and be good. And to me, it just feels like Miami's just 2 guys. Their defense sucks. Miami's defense sucks. It's bad. It is abysmal.
So let me flip the
They gave
shoe
up
on
46 to Louisville, 38 to Cal, 30-something to Virginia Tech. It's bad.
But here's the thing, though, Jeffrey. You're acting like the teams they're barely beating are bad. I can make an argument.
Austin, Cal is bad.
Here's the thing, Jeffrey. I would make an argument Cal is not that bad.
Cal is bad.
If they learn how to kick field goals, they could be bowl eligible right about now. And even you've admitted that.
Yeah, I did, but they still lost to Florida State, man. I mean, I understand that field goals played a part of it, but that's part of your team. That's part of your team. I mean, Florida State let Cal score 38 points.
And here's the thing, Jeffrey. Here's the problem. You're bringing up the Florida State loss, and I get it. They're terrible. They're atrocious. But we could use that logic for just about any other team. NIU for Notre Dame. Are we not going to penalize them for that?
The reason why Notre Dame lost that game is because of the fact that they had a hangover against Texas A&M, and they literally played like complete trash. And since then, they've been blowing everybody out. Unlike Miami, who can't blow out anybody.
Here's the thing, though, Jeffrey. You're penalizing Cal for one bad game, but you're not going to penalize Notre Dame.
So if Indiana loses by 40 to Ohio State, then suddenly the narrative that they're trash is legit. What if they just had one bad game?
So here's the thing, Jeffrey.
Ohio State beat Nebraska by 4, Indiana beat them by 49.
Here's the thing, Jeffrey. You can't use Ohio State because Ohio State is the top of the food chain. They are an elite program.
I get that, but we can do it for everybody.
But here's the thing, though, Jeffrey. If you go out and lose to Purdue 31-0, then we could start that argument. But if you lose to Ohio State by 40, it's just like it's another day, another year for Indiana. They're used to it. But if you lose to Purdue by 31 when they're at their worst, then we can have the argument that, oh, Indiana's not as good as we think they are.
What if Indiana beats Ohio State but loses to Purdue? Be the same thing as Notre Dame beating A&M and then losing to Northern Illinois.
Honestly, if Indiana does beat Ohio State, they're in the playoffs. That's basically
they're going to be in the playoff regardless, even if they lost to Purdue. But I'm just saying they still could lose to Purdue. True. Teams have hangovers.
And I think also it doesn't hurt to have a close game with Ohio State because, you mentioned TCU. All they had to do was lose by 10 or less in the Big 12 title game. They're in. I feel like that's that same case for Indiana. Like, let's say Indiana, Ohio State goes to overtime. Indiana's in. Indiana loses by 6 points or they lose by a field goal, they're in because everybody's like, holy crap, they tangled Ohio State. I can't remember last time anybody at Indiana's done that. A lot of people, especially in the committee, they will be amazed. And I feel like a lot of them have not stayed up late looking at the history or looking back at what happened since the start of college football in 1869.
So I want to throw this out here to you all. Since this
Okay.
is Alabama, I'm going to put y'all on the spot. Since you're both Bama guys and Jeffrey's Indiana. Let's say there's a world, Jeffrey, where Indiana, their one loss is Ohio State. But Bama makes the title game, but loses a tight one to Texas. And it comes down to Bama, Indiana. Who gets the edge there?
I think
Most likely Alabama would win.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, there is a reason why the out of 10 people say, well, how many out of 10? That rule, that saying exists. You know what I'm saying? Like Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. But out of 10 games, if Bama played Vanderbilt, how many games would Bama win? Probably 8 or 9 of them. So
probably
that's the same thing. If Indiana played if Indiana played Alabama, Indiana could maybe win 1 or 2 of those 10.
We got a comment from JT Thompson, but actually that's next Saturday night on NBC. This Saturday is Notre Dame, Virginia.
Which here's the thing, and what bothers me is about this whole situation. I get the SEC Big Ten, they're the echelon, right? And Alabama, Jeffrey, as you told me time and time again, more likely with 3 losses, they're going to get in. Especially now because
they shouldn't, but
because
maybe.
Because here's the thing. I agree with you, Jeffrey. But the problem is so many teams have so many losses.
Yeah. It's
just like we're not in a year anymore where we have all these unbeatens and these 1 losses, and then that 3 losses sitting there like just sitting there. Everybody's got at least 2 losses or 1 or 3. So it makes it more complicated now. Now, if this was last year and Alabama had 3 losses, yeah, they would have got left out. They would have been left at the altar. Sorry, guys, but that would have happened. They would have left you at the altar.
It's like this comment right here. Army should be in the conversation. If Army beats Notre Dame, then they will be.
They're in.
But the thing is, if they lose that game, they're not. They're done because of the fact that they haven't played anybody. Oh well, Indiana hasn't either. It's 2 different things. Army's playing nobody and Indiana's playing nobody is 2 different things. Did Army play Michigan? No.
Here's the thing.
So that's the thing. And plus, like the issue with this season is that there's so many results that counteract what you believe from a team. So you look at Texas, and Texas has been great most of this season, right? But they had that one atrocious game against Georgia, right? Georgia loses to Alabama. And then, again, Bama lost to Vandy. Vandy lost to Georgia State. You can go down the list all day long. Is Georgia State better than Bama, Georgia, or Texas? No. But Georgia State beat the team that did knock off Bama in an upset. An upset win. That was not, I won't say fluky, but out of 10 times, Vandy would not beat Alabama hardly ever. It just wouldn't happen. So when you look at Bama, Georgia, and Texas, all the results counteract each other on saying who's better. People said Texas was, but they lost to Georgia. People say Georgia was, but they lost to Bama. Who's better?
And see, but here's the thing, though. I want to propose this to you, Jeffrey. How do we know that the Cal-Florida State game wasn't a fluke? How do we know Cal just didn't have a bad day?
We can do this for every team. It doesn't solve anything.
Exactly.
The issue with Miami, though, is that they're barely beating teams that aren't that good again and again and again. That's the problem with Miami.
So let me ask you this. Would you consider Miami's best win to be us as of right now?
Yes.
And let me ask you this. Would I be out of line saying we're a top 25 team? We're top 25 program.
This season, it's borderline.
I
honestly told you, Austin, I said this last week, that to be honest with you, I feel like this year's Louisville team and last year's Louisville team are basically even. They're basically even. It's just this year Louisville had a harder schedule. The very same thing could happen to Indiana next year, Austin, where Indiana has a harder schedule and Indiana loses 4 games. Whereas this year they had this great run. Next year they could go 8-4, and they'd probably be the exact same team.
Well, and that's the thing, too. Here's the thing, Jeffrey, because what does our good buddy Mark Rogers always like to – people like to say when they ask him about good wins and good losses, a lot of time they'll bring up, where does Mark think they are in the pantheon of the country? Like Indiana's best win, I would probably say is Nebraska. Is Nebraska a top 25 team? I would say so, yes, when they act like it. You can make the case Louisville's top 25. You can make a case they're top 15.
And when Nebraska beat Colorado in the early portion of the season, Nebraska looked like a good team.
Well, that's the thing too, Jeffrey. I feel like I'm only giving Miami the edge in your argument is because that they beat a better team. I think Louisville is a little better than Nebraska, and I'm not being biased.
Michigan's probably better than Louisville, though. I still think Michigan's better.
If we're basing it off this year, I would say
Tyler Shutt, or however you say his last name, is a better quarterback for Louisville than any quarterback Michigan has. But Michigan's team has – does Louisville have a top 5 draft pick on the roster?
You can make an argument for Quincy Riley. A lot of people like him. He'd be projected to go in the top 10 in some mock drafts.
Well, okay. Well, get rid of that question. Who cares? Will Johnson is going to be a top 5 pick, though, for Michigan. But Michigan has probably like 10 guys that are going to get drafted this year. Louisville probably has 3. And I know that doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Not to cut you off. I would say, Jeffrey, I would probably say our best player is either Gelati or Riley. And Riley will probably go higher than Gelati, and he'll go in the top 10 somewhere, top 15. I've seen that on a lot of draft boards, but I get where you're going. Michigan is more top-end talented.
I don't care about the NFL draft. I really don't care about it that much when determining a team. It doesn't matter to me. I think Louisville is a better team than Michigan this season based off their play. But based off talent, Michigan's a better football team. Indiana's not as talented as Michigan. Who's in the top 5 right now? You know why? Because Indiana's got a quarterback and they got a good coach. Michigan doesn't. Their coach sucks. Jerome Moore's not good, and they don't have a quarterback. But the rest of their team is better than Louisville, and they're better than Indiana. I said it. Michigan is a better team than Indiana and Louisville based off their entirety of their talent. They suck because they don't have a quarterback and they don't have a coach.
See, here's the thing. You can make a case, Jeffrey, that, and I'll correlate this back to Alabama. You can make a case by play. Indiana and Louisville has looked better than Alabama has this year in some games. You can make a case for that. But talent-wise, Bama blows us both off the board by a mile. No arguments. But like you said, you determine it by your play. Has Indiana been a better team than Alabama? In some games, yes. Has Louisville? Some games, yes. But overall, Bama is the better team, and if we both stepped on the field with them, it would get ugly pretty fast.
Yeah, it probably would. But the thing that kills me so much is I don't care what happens in that Indiana-Ohio State game. I've said this about 100 times. I don't care. It doesn't matter the result. But what I don't understand is how Ohio State fans cannot at least admit that Indiana beat a team that Ohio State beat by 49. Why can that not at least be referenced? Because it happened. Indiana beat Nebraska by 49, and Ohio State beat them by 4. Who's the better football team? Ohio State, they got $20 million in NIL they could spend every year. Ryan Day's not the greatest coach in the world, but he bought that team just like other teams bought their team. They bought Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins and Caleb Downs, all those guys, and they're darn good, and they're really, really good. But Will Howard has underperformed, and Ohio State looked really bad against Nebraska. That doesn't mean Indiana's going to beat them. Ohio State very well is going to beat Indiana. I would probably give them an 80% chance to win the game. But the thing is I don't understand why Ohio State fans cannot at least admit that they sucked against Nebraska and Indiana blew them off the field. That at least means something. It means something. It means that Ohio State can play bad.
I want to look at this Nets quote from Mr. Buttnuts. He says, quote me, Buckeyes blow Indiana out.
I don't care.
If they don't?
I don't care, though. It doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter. Ohio State can win by 30. There's a whole range of outcomes in life, in every scenario, okay? There's a range of outcomes, whether you're going to be a success or a failure. And in a football game, there is a range of outcomes. The outcomes range from Ohio State beating Indiana by 30 to all the way to Indiana upsetting them. That's the range of outcomes. That is the entirety of the range of outcomes. And I honestly cannot tell you what outcome is going to happen. I can't do that. You know why I can't do that? Because the game hasn't happened. I can't do that. I would have bet $1 million that Ohio State would have beaten Nebraska by more than 4, and they didn't. So the logic doesn't make sense. It just doesn't.
See, here's the thing, Jeffrey. And I know you've used this argument in the past, and Jackson has to some extent. But you like comparing apples and apples, right? You're comparing Nebraska versus Ohio State versus Nebraska, correct?
Yes.
Couldn't we use that argument for a lot of teams? We could be like, okay, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Georgia. Georgia played like crap against Alabama, but guess what? If people are saying Texas was the best team, Georgia went to their field and beat them. So does that make them better than Alabama?
This is why it's stupid to argue. It doesn't matter. I mean, 35-17 is a very realistic score for that game. That could happen. I mean, the thing is even if Indiana wins the game, Ohio State's still the better football team.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, sitting here right now, think Michigan is a better football team than Indiana. I think that is true. And people in chat are probably thinking, what is wrong with Jeffrey? He's losing his mind. I'm not losing my mind. Michigan is a better football team than Indiana. Why? Because they've got tons of draft picks, man. Indiana does not. Michigan is 5 stars all over the dang place. So they do.
So let me ask you something, guys. And Jackson and Jeffrey, let me ask you, if J.J. McCarthy came back, what would Michigan's record be right about now? Probably, 8-1?
Yeah. I know sometimes Michigan doesn't have a QB. That's the statement of the century. I wonder how many times I've said that this year. Probably about 100. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback.
So much later that we need that the old narrator quit, so they had to hire a new one.
I mean, this argument is stupid. It's getting on my daggum nerves. It's stupid. I don't care about the daggum game. Indiana, Ohio State, it does not matter. What matters is that Ohio State and Indiana have had comparable opponents, and in all the games Indiana has played against those comparable opponents, they've looked better than Ohio State. That's what matters. Indiana beat Michigan State by more than Ohio State did. Indiana beat Nebraska by more than Ohio State did. That's what matters to me. But you know who's the better team? Ohio State. We don't know who's going to win. Most likely Ohio State, but it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't freaking matter. And JT is completely correct. Playing games matters, results matter, comparison matters. The better team doesn't always win either. Vanderbilt's not better than Alabama. They're not better. They are not better. They will never be better than Alabama. And if they are better, then the whole world's been turned upside down. But they still beat them. They still knocked off Alabama. But Georgia State beat Vanderbilt. They beat Vanderbilt. You can't compare. You cannot compare.
Jeffrey, calm down.
No,
Jeffrey,
I'm fine. You're good,
pregame.
Austin. I've said the same thing 100 times. You can't keep having me say the same thing again and again and again and again and again and not expect someone to get frustrated. I've said the same thing, but people still just don't listen. I've said the same thing.
Chill, Jeffrey. Chill. It's all right. It's all right. Indiana's going to win the national title.
I'm completely composed. I'm just being honest. I'm gonna make sure people understand what the heck I'm saying before we get off tonight. If you don't understand what I'm saying, then that's on you. I've said what I've said. And what I'm saying is the fact that we can't compare teams based off the results if you're going to go off the fact that Ohio State's just better. It's just facts. It's just facts. Ohio State is a better team. Doesn't mean they're going to win.
And here's the thing. Before Jackson does his promo real fast. So I agree with you, Jeffrey. You're right. Results.
Thank you.
It's a one-time game. It's not like the NBA where they're playing a best of 7. Then that's a whole nother argument. But Alabama could lose.
See, Austin, you're actually like 110% genius because you're like the only person that I've actually heard say that in response to what I've said all season. Thank you. That's why the NBA is the most legit thing in the world, because you have 7 games to prove who's better. And in football and in basketball, you got 1 game. It means nothing. The winner of that game would not always win. It's 1 game. Thank you, Austin.
Here we go. Well, we will tell you of something that does matter. You can shop on Amazon using the link to support the voice of college football. You don't need to buy the product displayed. Doesn't cost you a penny. Same shopping experience with the link below, especially for Christmas time coming up.
Yes.
Jackson,
that's a fabulous idea, Jackson. You know, I got to get on Amazon later because I got to get my dog a new bed. My dog tore up his bed. You just gave me a great idea. I'm going to use this link to make sure Mark Rogers at the Voice of College Football gets his cut too. And Mark can know that my dog is sleeping well because I bought a bed from his link.
There you go. And we got a question from Mr. Buttnuts. I'm just laughing about the name. Sorry, dude. I'm just so sorry about that. But he asked, what's the chance of Ole Miss Bama SEC title game? I don't see that being the SEC title game, but I could see that being a playoff game if both teams win.
The SEC title game could be like 5 or 6 different scenarios. I mean, there's like a scenario where there could be like 6 or 7 2-loss teams. It could go a million different ways. And honestly, whoever makes the SEC title game, especially the team, if there's 2 losses for that team in the SEC title game, would actually hurt them. Making the SEC title game is actually a bad thing, to be honest. It'd be better if you have 2 losses, you don't want to make it. You do not want to make the SEC title game.
We can just sit and chill for championship week.
Yep.
I'll say this. I'll give it like a 15% because, you know, this year in the SEC is wacky. And who knows what can happen. Alabama A&M. I think I had Alabama Texas. I think at the beginning of the year was my pick.
I had Georgia Texas being the SEC title game rematch. Matter of fact, I had Georgia, Texas playing each other in the ACC title game, and I believe I had Georgia, Texas playing each other in a semifinal matchup.
Does anybody remember when Ole Miss lost to Kentucky?
Yes.
Does that mean Ole Miss sucked? No, it doesn't mean that they suck. 1 game. Ole Miss is a good team, but they had a crappy game.
Well, and that's the thing too, Jeffrey. I'm glad you brought that up. It's like you said, we can make that with many teams. But like I'll say this, just for anyone that's coming in, this is not the NBA where there are 7 games. It's like Alabama and Georgia, if Vanderbilt played a 7-game series, Bama would probably sweep them most of the time. Could Alabama lose that one like they did? Sure. But Alabama would win 4 out of 5 times if that was the scenario. But in college football and NFL, it's 1 game. Anything can happen. A fluke can happen. You never know.
Austin, you were killing it, man. You were killing it. You're killing it. I mean, you were so right. Absolutely.
Georgia, Kentucky, Jeffrey. You've mentioned that multiple times. Me and Jackson have mentioned that on our shows. Like, Kentucky, talent-wise, is nowhere near Georgia, but look at the results of that game. Is Georgia really 1 point better than Kentucky? No.
No, I mean, Georgia's way better than Kentucky. I mean, if it was a video game and the game went like that, Georgia would have won by 30, but they didn't because Georgia played terrible and Kentucky did everything they could to win. They just fell short. But it's so frustrating because the thing is I would love to see rematches, man. I would love to see in some games just be able to see that team play that team again, see if it would go the same way. I mean, yeah, and that is a perfect example, JT, because I've said this too. You guys are saying all the things that I've already said, and I didn't lose it. I mean, yeah, I was into it, but I didn't lose it. I've been saying the same thing for 4 months, and it kind of comes to a head where you just don't want to hear it anymore. You know, you don't. But the thing is this right here. I said this like last week, and I know you remember it, Jackson. South Carolina is literally 3 points from being a one-loss team and a team that would be in the playoff discussion right now. 3 points.
Agreed.
3 points. They lost to Bama by 2, or actually LSU, I forgot. They lost by 3, so 5 points. But it doesn't matter. One possessions, man. They were that close. But South Carolina had a bad performance in there too. I can't remember. I can't remember everything. So let me go back.
They got smacked by Ole Miss.
There you go. They got blew out in that game. Blown out. They just sucked in that game. And I remember asking people say, "Oh, well, South Carolina's so good." South Carolina is good. They're a good team. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact we've seen multiple games of them outperforming expectations. They were not supposed to play Alabama to a 2-point game. They're not supposed to hang with LSU. Now, I will say it's looking worse because LSU's, but still, they destroyed Oklahoma. I mean, that counts for something. I mean, they're looking pretty good. And yeah, Georgia got blown out by Ole Miss too, but Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. They lost to Kentucky. So again, all these results, they mean nothing, dude. At the end of the day, you can tell who's good and who's not by looking at an entire season, and you take the results, and there's a couple of outliers, but we know deep down that Georgia and Ole Miss and Alabama are good teams. They're not bad teams, even though they've had bad games this year. Like Georgia get blown out against Ole Miss, barely beating Kentucky. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. Bama lost to Vandy. But we know these teams are still good. They might not be elite, but they're still good teams that they would beat 95% of programs.
Here's the thing that I want to bring up. USC is a prime example of what you all are talking about. USC could be 6-2, 7-1 themselves.
Like, yeah, they could. Yeah, they could, Austin. They could.
I mean, losing to Minnesota in a tight one, Michigan tight one,
Maryland.
Oh my God,
that one,
game
man.
against Maryland. That was a nightmare for them. It's like, how can you lose to a team that got obliterated by Northwestern? And we're not talking about Ara Parseghian Northwestern. We're talking about David Braun in his second season at Northwestern.
I don't know, man. I mean, Austin's right. Technically, he is right. USC could be a lot better. They could. I mean, they did beat LSU. I mean, they have good players, but they have not closed games out. I even told you guys as well that North Carolina is as bad as North Carolina's been this year. They should have beat Duke. They really should have beat Georgia Tech. I mean, they could be better as well. I mean, you could do it about a lot of teams. You really could. North Carolina's not very good, but still, I mean, we saw North Carolina blow out Virginia and Florida State, so they can play. They are capable.
Well, see, here's the thing. And Jackson, I know you're going to love this next question. I've told Jackson this. I don't know if I've told your audience or you, Jeffrey, but I feel like with this new format, we're going to see this going more forward, more parity in the league. Oregon's going to schedule better opponents. Ohio State and Penn State, they're going to schedule more opponents because if the committee sets a precedent, hey, if Penn State says, I want to play Pittsburgh, and say they lose, and the committee's like, I'm not going to punish you for that because Pittsburgh went 9-3 and made the ACC title game. Penn State, guess what? You're still going to get a playoff spot. I think the committee needs to really set the precedence that you need to schedule better and you will earn a playoff spot. It's not the 4-team anymore where you have to schedule cupcakes every week where, Alabama's like, we need to schedule Mercer, Old Dominion, and, we might schedule Syracuse just to say we put someone on the schedule. And not to throw shade at you all, but Ohio State and all the other elite teams do it too.
The
Love
tough
Alabama
thing
now.
with that, like I said earlier, is it's almost impossible to quantify, though. Because just say you have Alabama playing Boise State and they win by 40. That looks great on paper. They blew Boise State out. They blew a decent team out, right? But then you take a team like Oregon and just say they play Texas and they lose by 7. Who's it going to help more? Are they going to favor Oregon for losing to Texas by 7, or are they going to favor Bama, who won by 40 over Boise? That's the problem, because you can't. I mean, against the Mercer's got to go. The Mercer's got to go. It's garbage, like me and Jackson have already said. But playing a team like Texas in the non-conference, if you're Oregon, or having Bama play Ohio State and you barely lose, how do you quantify that? Do you just don't move them down? Do you move them down like 2 spots or something instead of moving them down far, or what?
Here's the thing. Like you said, Texas, right? Well, Texas is a really good opponent. And it's like, I understand your argument, and I'm sure Jackson will add more to this, but it's like, look at Penn State. The week after they lost to Ohio State, they got bumped, 3 spots? They didn't get punished that much because they played a really good football team.
Mm. I mean, it's like Mr. Bucknut says. He said Oregon did beat us via point of their play for schedule week. I mean, yeah, their best out-of-conference win was Boise State, and they almost lost, which that win is aging well, as people love to say. But it's still just – it's impossible. I mean, the problem is that the thing is that in the NFL and in the NBA, it's a lot easier to quantify how good a team is because most teams are playing comparable schedules, right? In the NBA, every team's going to play everybody at some point in the season at least once. And in the NFL, you don't play every team, but you play all the teams in your division so you can compare those results. And then you do play a vast majority of other teams in the NFL. So then you can kind of compare with all the teams how a team's looking. Whereas in college football, it's impossible because every single team plays different schedules. And there's so many teams, you can't compare. You just can't compare. It's almost impossible. I mean, the only way it would work is if every team basically had the same schedule. Otherwise, you can't because, like I said, how do you compare a 40-point win for Bama over Boise versus a 7-point loss for Oregon against Texas? You can't. You can't. What's better for you? The win is going to be better every single time, not the loss.
There we go.
I don't know. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because I agree with you, Austin. I do. Absolutely. But, yeah, it's impossible to quantify.
And we got a super chat contribution from JT Thompson. And he says, if anybody has a QB for rent, please send them to Athens. Keep up the good work, fellas.
Honestly, appreciate the super chat, JT. But honestly, I think it's hilarious that Georgia is asking for a QB when Mr. Carson Beck was supposed to be a Heisman finalist. And now ever since he's been having a relationship with the Cavender twin, he's been playing bad. So it's kind of funny, man. I do think there is a correlation there. Do you think I'm wrong, or do you think that's right? I mean, I think that might have something to do with it.
There we go.
Well, it's funny that you say that because wasn't Carson Beck supposed to be a top 5 draft pick at the beginning of the year?
At least very close to that, yeah.
Like, has anyone ever taken this far of a ball off?
Ollie Gordon wasn't that high, but he's fallen off this year. I mean, there's been other guys. I mean, that's a good question. There has to be someone else at it because, I mean, the thing is, I've seen Carson Beck still in the 3rd round. I mean, his draft stock hasn't completely tanked, but yeah, he has fallen.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a distraction. I mean, I really could be wrong. I could be wrong, but even JT agrees. He thinks I mean, the problem is that NIL is affecting players for good or for worse. I mean, for some, it's awesome because like maybe they're broke and they've been poor their whole life and they're getting this once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, they're making money. That's great. And if they use it right, it's even better. But then you got other people they're getting distracted by, and they're like Georgia. They're getting all these expensive cars and they're driving all over Athens and drinking and junk and getting, you know, should be thrown in the slammer, but they're not because the players. I mean, look at Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's a grown man. Tyreek Hill in the NFL just being dumb. The guy before one of the games earlier this year is getting arrested because he's driving 120 miles an hour down a freeway and his McLaren. I mean, it's like, dude, I get it. You got a McLaren. That's great. But drive that on a track. You know what I'm saying? Get on a track and drive 200 miles an hour like Jeff Gordon or Dale Earnhardt or something. Don't do that on an interstate where you could kill people and yourself. I mean, Henry Ruggs ruined his career because he killed a lady at night at 2 a.m. because he was drinking, and the dog.
And he was fighting the cops after he got in that wreck. So
it's stupid. It's just sad. I mean, you know, like most people will never experience that amount of money. And don't get me wrong. I mean, they're great athletes. They deserve to earn money, but then they don't know what they're doing with it.
Do you remember
of course, Athens is making tons of money off Georgia players. Tons of money.
Do you remember that guy from Ohio State that was drafted by the Raiders who got thrown off because he was waving a gun on TikTok or Instagram live stream, like acting like an idiot? He was like threatening people, just going, "Oh, you feel me, man? I'm gonna do this to all y'all." It's like, yeah, bro, that's what they're gonna do to you.
Dude, some people do really stupid stuff for clout and clicks. I mean, I don't know if you remember or not, but there was one time that one really famous YouTuber, I Show Speed or whatever, set fireworks off in his room. Okay, and he had like 10 million views, man. He had like 10 million like viewers for that junk, and literally, I mean, it was an entire skit. Like his mom's coming in his room. Oh my gosh, you're setting the house on fire. Like she knew already. It was a skit. The guy did it on purpose because he made so much money off that stream that he was able to fix the room. Like he probably made over $1 million on that stream. So then he could just use the part of the money to fix the room, and he's got tons left over. I mean, it's all for an act. People do really stupid stuff for clicks, really stupid stuff for views. There have been people that have died basically being on the side of a mountain doing selfies, and then they blow off the cliff. And it's I can't even feel bad for you on that. You're just stupid. Yeah. You really are. Like, I hate you die, but my Lord, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Jeff Gordon said Breakaway 34. I love the late 90s or like that era of NASCAR. NASCAR is, I wasn't alive for that, but like that era was really cool. You know, there's a lot of iconic drivers. I mean, you still had Richard Petty. I mean, Bill Elliott was like always last, but like he was cool. You know, Kevin Harvick, Tony Stewart. You know, just tons of great drivers, man. Today it's just lame. I mean, NASCAR is lame.
Time I watched,
honestly, anybody that watches NASCAR today, if you don't think that it's lame, like you can still watch it. That's fine, but it's lame. Its heyday is history.
The last time I even watched like NASCAR was 2014, maybe. I think it was like 2013 when I was waiting it out for Alabama and Mississippi State to start, but that was it.
Yeah, the NASCAR is one of those things. It's gone down, man. Like same thing with like the WWE. I mean, and all those leagues. It's terrible, man. I mean, like you had all those iconic Stone Cold, The Undertaker, you know, The Rock, John Cena. Kind of, some people don't like him, but you know, like just tons of people, right? And it just now it's boring. You know, the Hardy twins. Like, it was better in like the 2000s and 90s. A lot of things peaked in the 90s and 2000s.
True.
NASCAR did. Baseball's heydays been long gone. Baseball, it's irrelevant, man. It's completely irrelevant. Like, I know some people that still watch it, but almost hockey's more popular now than baseball almost. And I know I'm being a little general. I'm sure baseball's still, but you get what I mean. Baseball's heydays in the past. NASCAR's in the past. WWE's in the past. It's sad. And NASCAR's the worst because they literally ruined it. I mean, it has no appeal. There's no appeal to it. Everything, they changed the rules. Everything about it is just dumb. It's dumb. Yeah, when Earnhardt died, yes. Earnhardt, I remember my parents, they were watching that he died in 2003. Yeah, I wasn't born in
2001. It was in February 2001 in Daytona 500.
Yeah, I knew it was before I was born. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, that they were watching that race and he died and they never really watched it after that. I mean, he was an icon. And Earnhardt Jr. was all right, but it was never the same, man. Like, no matter how many Bojangles commercials he was in, it wasn't the same, dude. NASCAR died. I don't know, man. Like, I want to like it because I love cars. I actually do love cars. I think, you know, I even like the freaking movie when I was a child. Like, you know, but I actually like cars, you know, like Nissan Zs and Miatas and, you know, tons of cars. Like, I think cars are really cool. Pontiac was a great brand back in the day, but now it's just NASCAR is really stupid these days. It's
the only part that I mute during the movie is the Life is a Highway song because that's my Aunt Kelly's Bad Luck song from what I've heard.
Dude, that song is iconic, man.
I love it, but it's like I make sure it's like, oh crap, there's this person's Bad Luck song. I better mute it so they don't get bad luck.
Why is it her Bad Luck song?
Bad things happen when it's played. It just happens. It's like, bam.
Are you kidding me? It's like if we were playing this song right now, which obviously you can't on YouTube because copyright, but if we were playing it right now, then long, far away, something bad's going to happen. Like, dude, I've watched that movie probably 100 times. So, I mean, she's screwed.
I know, right?
I don't want nothing bad happening to her, man, but I love that movie, man. You crank that baby up when you get to it. I mean, I'm not a big country music guy at all. Like, that's not my thing. But when that song comes on, it's cranking.
Ladies and gentlemen, the only Alabama college show where you will hear arguments about Indiana, Miami, and more debates on. Oh my God, you'll hear a lot about bad luck songs and this, that, and the other. And let me tell you, it's a wild ride. Like, comment, subscribe, and click on the notification bell for more fun right here on Alabama The Voice College Football. So you do not miss another video whatsoever.
Yeah, JT Thompson, y'all should do an off-season show about college players buying sports cars. I mean, the thing is, it's the absolute worst thing. More so than giving women big, you know, GMC Yukons and big SUVs that they can't see over the blind spots, 5-foot women that can't see. Even worse than that is giving a young man a sports car that drives over 180. Because when you do that, it's over. It's game over. People are going to die. Okay, and I'm being kind of funny, but seriously though, why do like really short women and even men drive really big trucks and SUVs? Why is that happening? They can't see, man. Like, they can't see. I see it all the time. You'll have like a 5'1" guy getting in a Toyota Tundra or a 5-foot woman getting in a GMC Yukon. I'm like, you can't see over the hood. You can't see in the blind spots. You can't even look over your shoulder because of the rows of seats behind you. You can't see. I'm like, man, I mean, I'm almost 6 foot, and I mean, I can barely see in a vehicle that big.
Well, as Ron White says, you can't fix stupid.
Yeah, you can't fix stupid, man. You just can't.
But Austin, any other topics involving the Alabama Crimson Tide tonight?
No, I think we probably covered every topic under the sun. What's next? Are we going to cover Jeffrey's secret marriage to Taylor Swift while we're at it?
Yeah, that's not that is fake news. Fake news right there. Fake news. I had a whole video about why Taylor Swift wasn't the good luck charm for the Chiefs. And people are like, oh, she was. That's why they won the Super Bowl. And I'm like, they won a Super Bowl without her. Okay, no, she had nothing to do with it. She wasn't on the field for one snap. Okay, she was just up in the booth. I could have been up there in the booth and they could have won, but no one would have cared if I was up there.
Oh man.
He Godfather of the SEC. Travis can. Hey, he can, man. He can all he wants. That's fine. I mean, I'm still wondering if that relationship's gonna last. I mean, what do you guys think? You think Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift is in game forever? I mean, I don't know, man. I don't see it. I don't see it, but I could be wrong.
I will say this.
I can't control it all that.
This is not the Jerry Show either. This is Alabama.
Yep. Agreed. This is the Alabama.
Hey, you brought up Taylor Swift, Austin, not me. You brought her up.
Jackson, he opened the form, and I was just making sure we hit everything.
Oh my! I'm not even reading that, man.
No,
I'm not even reading that.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. You gotta be kidding me, man. I cannot believe that was typed. Yeah, it is a pure media relationship, JT. I mean, it's all to keep the masses. It's all to keep the masses engaged in tomfoolery instead of creating your own meaningful relationships, man. Creating your own meaningful relationship is more important than following some celebrity relationship. Like, it's not that big a deal, man. I mean, I know it's been going on forever. Like you had the Katie Holmes, Tom Cruise, and, Brad Pitt and whoever it was, Angelina Jolie or whatever. It's like, who cares,
Brad
man? It doesn't matter. Like, why? They're just people having relationships. Like, it doesn't matter.
Like, if I was in a relationship with someone and I see like all these weird fanboys, fangirls following us around, I would feel really scared. Honestly.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I mean,
bodyguard.
The thing is, being famous sucks. I mean, in a way, it kind of does because, yeah, like everybody sees you everywhere, and like you don't have a connection, right? Like, there's a reason why Rush wrote the song "Limelight." You remember "Limelight," Jackson? I don't know if you ever heard that song before, but you had Neil Peart, right? He wrote in that song about how he didn't like strangers because they aren't an actual friend. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. Like you don't know these people. They only like you because you're famous and they like your music or they like your movies or whatever. But you can't, like in the song, like a stranger's a long-awaited friend. Yeah, it's not a long-awaited friend. They're just a stranger. So, I mean, that's a great song, by the way. Another thing that's declined along with NASCAR is music. Music sucks these days. Music peaked in the 80s and 70s and 60s, way long ago. But, I mean, seriously, I mean, the songwriting was a lot better than Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, and everybody boo-hooing about whatever the heck they want to talk about.
Oh, man.
It's insane.
You got me thinking about some song that I heard the other day. It was called Make His Pockets Hurt. Make his pockets hurt. No.
We got Troy V saying, wow, Jeffrey talking Rush. Didn't think the younger crowd like, oh, I love Rush. Rush is great. Boston's great. Led Zeppelin, Journey. I mean, some Journey's cringe, but like really early Journey was good. Styx was pretty good. Yeah. I mean, Heart in the 70s was really good. I mean, dude, like I love older music. Older music is killer. Like newer music's terrible. It is bad. I mean, AC/DC's good. I like AC/DC, but I mean, some of their stuff just sounds kind of the same. But I will say that I feel like early AC/DC was better than like late. Like I like the Back in Black era or the Bon Scott era before that better than like Thunderstruck and beyond. But
Highway to Hell was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I love when you can't play that song around certain groups of people though. They get upset.
Just don't play it around puppy dogs because like I remember
you can't do that.
Oh man, it was like.
But I mean, I love this Taylor Swift special at KFC 2 bowling times. Left Wing. Oh my god, it's good, man. Oh my, I can't read that second line, but the thing is, man, is yes, back in the day, real music, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can't tell me Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Rihanna, Billie Eilish. That's not music. Justin Bieber or Post Malone. It's not music, man. I mean, listen, like Boston, the lyrical complexity of a band like Rush and the, like, I don't even know what you want to call like the music aspect of Boston, like the electric guitars and like the sounds like spaceships going off. Yeah, a lot of it might have been auto-tuned because of how good Tom Scholes was as a freaking like IT guy or whatever. But it's like, my thing is that those bands were so far superior than like today. It's just the same loop of pop junk played over and over again a billion times, right? It's just like the same two little notes and then just depressing lyrics. Like even back in like the latter 2000s, early 2010s, like the Katy Perry stuff, or like Carly Rae Jepsen junk, like that stuff was cringe. But at least it was like "Baby, I'm a Firework," and it was kind of like upbeat and stuff. But now it's just it's depression. I want to kill myself. It's sad. It's just it's terrible. That's literally what they sing about. It sucks. It's bad. It's bad, Jackson. Music has declined so far, and that's why I like people act the way they do these days.
Sounds like Eeyore is happy.
Eeyore's less depressed than Billie Eilish.
Okay? And he has a nail up his butt.
Eeyore is less depressed than Billie Eilish. And that's by far.
Oh man. Well, we got a last call for callers. We got the call-in link, and
Troy V says, where do you stand on Slayer? Slayer's pretty good. Slayer's pretty good. I mean, all older music, man, for the most part, is better. And it's, I mean, I don't know. It's just everything about newer music is just garbage. It really is. I mean, people thought with like the Nirvana stuff and Pearl Jam with the Depression and all that it was really bad. And like even then, like that music was still like way superior. Like it had some meaning to it. It still had some complexity to the songwriting and everything in general, but now it's just bad. And overall, I mean, you could tell I like rock music better than pop music, but even pop music in the past was better than it is today. I mean, the Beach Boys, I don't know what you want to call them, but they were good. The Beach Boys were good. They were kind of rock, but like pop music is in R&B. It just dominates the charts.
Troy V's that's above with you, man. It's like I think this episode of the college show kind of feels like a Facebook post that you see from like your uncle from the where he's going on about in my day there were two options. In my day, there's like this is so funny.
I'm not trying. I'm laughing. I'm having a great time. I'm not trying to be grumpy, man. But I mean, Troy, I'm just telling facts, man. Just telling facts. Modern music's bad. It's terrible. I mean, kids getting off the line. I mean, I don't think I'm there yet.
If that kid, oh man, it's like
there's no way that kid knows what Master of Puppets is, man, or Enter Sandman. Come on. He don't know. His daddy bought it for him.
Oh man, it's like that would be so cool. Like if we see like a blonde kid and like a black haired kid where they got on like an AC/DC shirt and a Metallica shirt, like Beavis and Butt. That would be so funny right there.
Oh, that would be classic. I mean, it's so funny though. I'll see like some younger people for whatever reason. I've seen a lot of like girls these days wearing Nirvana shirts. Again, it's in that depression arc thing. I don't get it. And I'm just like, I mean, Nirvana, the band didn't last long enough because Kurt Cobain died. You know what I'm saying? The band didn't last long enough for, like their music, it gets old fast because there's like 4 songs. But yeah, I mean, I'll see some people where that. But like, I don't ever see like anybody wearing like Boston or anything. And I'm just like, it's sad. It's criminally underrated, man. I mean, like, honestly, I mean, yeah, some hair metal was very cringy. There was a lot of cringy hair, like Motley Crue. I mean, Motley Crue had like early on a couple decent songs, but then they just got really, really sleazy. But I mean, like even late hair metal, like Firehouse. Like I like something like Firehouse better than like Nirvana overall because it's more upbeat stuff. I mean, it's a little sappy, but I mean, I like a lot of songs that have like just great guitar riffs, you know, and I mean, because those people were very talented. I do prefer like a lot of 70s bands like Boston that wasn't hair metal, but a lot of the hair metal 80s stuff it's still catchy to this day. Like Bon Jovi was very catchy. I mean, his music can get old fast, but it was very catchy stuff, and people still sing it at ball games. So it's like, oh wow, we're listening to classic music. There's a lot more to older music than just Bon Jovi people. Like, come on, there's a lot more to that. But I agree with you, Troy. I mean, I wasn't alive for people to still be interested in Boston. Just absolutely not. Yeah, well, I mean, hair metal, I like more of like the upbeat songs. So like thrash and stuff like that. I can listen to it, but a lot of it's just a bunch of screaming for me. Like Metallica is like the borderline. Like I like Metallica, but like the more of metal of what I like would be like very early Van Halen. That's not technically metal, I guess, but it's on the border. You know, but I mean, I don't know. I do like some metal, but I'm more of a hard rock guy. I like classic rock better, like 70s stuff, but then some like the less sleazy hair metal of the 80s. And then it kind of all went downhill after that. Some 90s stuff's okay, but it did all go downhill after that.
Well, I will say though, we got ourselves a pretty exciting. Oh, we'll have to do that for the
comparison show of rock bands to college football teams. Well, the problem is that me and Jackson would disagree probably on the band placement because Jackson, I know he's more of a country music guy. But the funny thing about it is like the bands that I don't like are going to be where like the teams like Florida State are. They're going to be at Florida State. And then my favorite band, like Boston's going to be up like with Texas or Bama or Oregon or whatever. And, you know, like a garbage band's going to be down here with Florida State.
Man. We got some amazing content right here on Alabama with the Voice of College Football. And it's the only Alabama channel where you can hear like not only top-notch takes on Alabama football and our upcoming matchups, but you can hear quite a lot about bad luck songs and and who knows, you may hear a lot about good luck songs. But Jeffrey, what you got going on this week and next week?
A lot of stuff coming down the pike. Me and Will maybe we'll be able to fit the show on this week. It's been a lot of scheduling conflicts, but if we're able to do it, it's, be awesome. But next week for sure, me and Will be back for, the college football preview show and recap show on Only Talk Sports, my YouTube channel where I talk sports every single day, or at least I try to. College football, basketball, NFL, and NBA. Also, you can find me on Indiana at the Voice of College Football, where I talk about all things Indiana Hoosiers every Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. And do the post-game shows when it's over. And you can also find me here at Alabama at the Voice of College Football every Thursday night with Jackson to talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide and whatever else we end up talking about, which today was insane, but a lot of fun. I will say, though, I didn't get to catch Monday's show. So what was your prediction for Mercer?
Oh, that's the thing. I was going to say I've got Alabama winning 49-10 against Mercer.
I'll go 52-7.
Oh, there we go. Well, great minds think alike. Here we go.
I don't want to give Mercer 10, man. That's just sad. I mean, come on. Alabama, hold them to at least 7, right? Like, if you give up a garbage touchdown at the end of the game, it's all good. But, Johnny Burke's 43-7. Now, where's he got him getting the 43? A 2-point, a safety or something?
I'll have a random number.
Okay, I was about to say, like, because 43, like that would have to be like a safety or something.
Oh man, Austin has 48-3, Bama, and I can tell you right now, we got ourselves an exciting lineup heading your way, everyone. So we've got the Alabama Mercer game, and I can tell you right now, it looks like it's going to be a very, exciting show, despite the fact that we're playing a bad opponent, but we're still going to bring you an exciting show all the same. Yep.
Dude, they sampled Under Pressure too. It was a one-hit wonder off a sample. They sampled Under Pressure with Queen and David Bowie. It wasn't even their own unique sample. Like, come on. Like, that makes it even more of a joke.
I guess Florida State's going to have to quit it with the freaking 2 hot passes. But anyway.
Oh, man.
Anyway, that's just an inside joke. No worries, folks. But anyway, you can also. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so after the post-game show for Alabama Mercer, where it's likely going to be a wild show from Johnny, Jeffrey, and I, and Monday, we're going to have John Hoover from Fan Nation, a friend of the Voice of College Football, joining us for Oklahoma Week. And we have some more guests coming up. Who will they be? Tune in to find out. And, of course, next Thursday is going to be the 7th edition of the Alabama Crimson Tide College Show from Jeffrey and myself, where I can tell you right now, you're going to be tuning in for another wild show. And who knows what we'll be talking about besides Alabama football, of course. You'll never know.
Hey, I mean, if you want to keep it on Alabama discussion, call in. You know, you guys can dictate the conversation when you call in, but I mean, no one called in but Austin, so
and then
he kind of went off the rails. I mean, the thing is, I love sports. Don't get me wrong, I love sports, but I mean, talking about music or cars, man, it's great. I mean, it's a change of pace, man. It's a change of pace. It's nice.
There you go.
I hope I didn't go too overboard for you guys in chat. I'm sorry.
We are having a pretty wild ride tonight, and it's awesome. And of course, there's the Alabama Oklahoma post game show next Saturday as well. So the for Oklahoma Week will be simulcast on the Alabama and Oklahoma channel. And next Saturday's post-game show for Alabama, Oklahoma will be simulcast on Alabama and Oklahoma, of course. And we have a guest lined up for Alabama Auburn Week. We have friend of the Voice of College Football, Kyle Loomis of E2C Network, joining us for that week. And we will have more guests for that week as well. Tune in to find out who it is. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. And
Troy V says, good show, guys. Had fun. Learned very little about Mercer, but had fun. Thanks. Honestly, does anybody know much about Mercer?
Except that they're 9-1.
Yeah, they're 9-1. I mean, you know.
Yay. So, and we are 52 subs away from the magic number 2,500. Matter of fact, we are looking to beat Texas at the Voice College Football to 3,000 subs.
Appreciate it, RK. So this show is the best I've seen in a while. Thanks a bunch. Absolutely. I mean, there's more to come. There's more to come.
More to come.
So definitely appreciate it.
There we go. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is the only Alabama show where you will be hearing about random other topics that aren't involved in college football, where you'll have a lot of fun. We
didn't even get to SpongeBob or Phineas and Ferb, man. So, I mean, that's impressive.
Well, one question, though. Where's Perry? That's what I want to know.
Oh, man.
But we do know where Mark is. He's got a little something involving Voice of College Football bets and a little something involving our friend Steve Merrill for the Under the Radar pick of the week. And we wish you all a good night. Sleep well. Stay safe. Like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell so you do not miss another video whatsoever. And we will see you Saturday afternoon. Time to be determined. But we will see you on Saturday after the Alabama Mercer game. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it, folks.
Roll Tide!
Roll Tide!
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the voice of college football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the voice of college football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.